This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol Live, where some people might be excited. I've been dreading this all day. You would think as a political commentator, this kind of thing would get me excited. I assure you I enjoyed doing election coverage last night far more. Roseanne is speaking, like right now at the Trump rally. And I rewound it a little bit so we could watch Roseanne saunter out. It's quite something to behold. Trump is expected to speak in about 10 minutes, which means it's probably going to be closer to 25 minutes. Catman, PP Girl, Warlord, good evening. Welcome. We are an hour and some change away from the third GOP presidential primary debate. Before that, we have Donald Trump speaking at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie. Why do I always forget Chris Christie? I have no clue. PB Girl, I don't know what you're talking about. The auto emojis, I don't know what that is. I don't know how Kick works. But let's go ahead. I guess let me give you a meme before we get started. I had one pulled up, and then I realized it wasn't the person I thought it was. So the meme didn't make sense to me. So let's do this one. Anti-homeless architecture. Give me ideas. Armrests on benches. Spikes everywhere. Houses. They throw that motherfucker out the window. Nobody wants to house the homeless. That's not going to solve the problem. Or at least it's not going to make anybody any money. I actually saw the number is insane now. There are like 28 empty houses for every homeless person in this country. 28 empty houses for every homeless person in this country. So how's about that? Here's Roseanne. Oh, hold on. Let me kill that. Tones. I can't imagine that Brian May would want Queen music playing at a Trump rally. I may be wrong. Roseanne dancing to "We Will Rock You" is hilarious, though. It is Roseanne, right? Is she on Ambien? That math does not math. That's some Scott Steiner math.
You're 33 and a third chance, minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 and a third chance of winning.
So this is Roseanne Barr? Is that her name now? I absolutely believe that number. Danielle, good evening. Like, think about how many apartment complexes have...
Hi, MAGA!
Yeah, that's totally Roseanne.
Oh, it's so exciting to be here with all of you tonight.
I'd know that shrill voice anywhere.
Here.
Nix, good
So
evening.
Exciting. I've never been to a Trump rally before. It's my first one. It's so cool.
It looks like Morrissey's back there behind her.
It's exciting. I gotta get you to do it with me. USA!
Kelly, good evening.
USA! 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 Thank you! USA! God bless America!
Let me hit a flag drop here.
I love you all so much. I got to get my picture taken with President Trump about a week ago there at Mar-a-Lago, and it was so exciting. I could hardly control myself. I went in there and I grabbed at him,
And did he grab you by the pussy?
He was so nice. He just kind of gently rearranged my arms so nicely.
You live in sexual anarchy.
And afterwards I thought, oh my God, I could have got shot. The way I was grabbing at him with the Secret Service, I was just like, oh, I love you.
Sorry, John, sorry.
Control myself.
Content warning.
I just flipped out. But then several nights later, I saw him again, and I was able to actually touch him and hug him, and it meant so much to me. And that was the night that Shabbat had ended. I don't know if y'all know, but I'm a
casual Shabbat.
Wow, that's the first time I've been cheered for that. Thank you.
Ma'am, you don't want to know how many Nazis are in that crowd.
So it was Shabbat night, and I had just, said all my prayers all day, meditating and praying as I invite you to do for our country and for all the captives that, in our country whose minds are stolen by this terrible regime and they can't get free of it. And, we got to pray for them.
Danielle, it is Right Side Broadcasting Network.
When I touched him, my hands were full of all the love that you people have given me over the last 4 years. You saved my life.
I think when you touched him, your hands were full of shit.
Take me down. You gave me so much love. I thank you for that. You saved me. And I put all of the love you've given me onto President Trump. I gave him 99% of it, and I just said, oh, we love you so much. You are our inspiration. You are our hero. We love you. I said, I want you to know how much we pray for you and how much we love you and how much we look to you and how much we hope for you. I want you to know.
I think she's one of the many to make that joke.
I meet every day feel that about you because it's true. And, I ran for president down here. I was on the ballot in Florida in 2012. I don't know.
I think she did.
I don't know if you knew that. But I did run for president against...
She at least molested Trump.
I didn't like him, and so I decided... Oh, yeah. Boo it up, baby. Oh, yeah. And this is his third term that we're living through. You know that, right?
It's so weird when they say that.
2012, because I wanted to run against him.
Right-wingers aren't aware that Obama and Biden, they don't like each other.
This is the time for a woman to win. Me, not Hillary. But I said, because this is the time for a woman. Because anything a man can do, a woman can get another man to do even better. Yeah. I love you. Thank you, honey. But other thing when I ran for president, also ran on the thing, one of my platforms was, I will outlaw bullshit.
Ma'am.
Yep. And I want to show you this jacket that my friend made. And look at this here. Look at this.
That's a violation of the flag code.
Trump is the Magador. Yeah, and that's the deep state bull. So that kind of went along with my thing for president. I will outlaw bullshit. But I want to say right now, aren't we all tired of the deep state bullshit.
Come on, man.
I can't hear you. I want you to say it louder. Aren't we all fed up with the deep state bullshit?
Even this woman's like, Roseanne is hurting my ears.
And the bullshit. We want Trump, the Magador, to kill that goddamn bull. And the bullshit. Kill that goddamn bull.
I gotta turn my volume down.
I love you. Thank you for having me tonight.
So that was Roseanne. I actually paused it when I saw her coming out, so we are not live at the moment. Is that Kimberly Guilfoyle? Looks like Kimberly Guilfoyle is currently speaking.
We are done with the corruption and the chaos of
DJ Dub,
Biden.
Richard.
Come on, man.
America is going to quit him and Kamala Harris while we're at it. Pink slip, baby. Just like we gave it to Nancy Pelosi, we're going to give it to them.
Nancy Pelosi is still in Congress.
They see it coming. He's just one slip and fall away from them pulling out the carpet underneath him, right?
Okay, so...
Bye.
And by the way, this is when Trump is supposed to be speaking right now. We are live on Right Side Broadcasting. Back to Roseanne. We had the conversation. Amy Schumer said she was the most successful female comedian of all time. And I actually threw out Roseanne is probably the most successful female comedian of all time. And it is a shame to see what has happened to her because her show, for those who weren't alive then, her show was actually incredibly progressive. It was one of the first major network sitcoms to really delve into the plight of the working class of a very poor family trying to make it in the Rust Belt. So there is I think Jose does a fantastic. It's like 3 hours long, like a leftist reading of Roseanne on YouTube. Do check that out. Wanda Sykes would be the most successful female comedian of all time if she wasn't black. I almost guarantee that. Yes, Rick Santorum, Dustin, admitting that pure democracy is not the way to run the country. No, I'm saying that she faced racism. I don't think Wanda Sykes has had the financial success, the box office success that Roseanne has. Now, I posed this question to my friend, the greatest female comedian of all time, and he actually threw out a name I didn't think of, and he may be right. But it's if you consider her a comedian. She started as a stand-up. But I don't think anybody considers her a comedian anymore, and that would be Whoopi Goldberg. She would be considered the greatest female comedian of all time. Take that, Amy Schumer. No. How is that possible? Sister Act is a way better movie than anything Amy Schumer's ever been in. We are about 55 minutes away from the GOP presidential primary debate. We are moments away from Donald Trump taking the stage here in his home turf. They are in Florida, somewhere outside of Miami in a town I've never heard of, Halila. Well, he was scheduled to speak at 7 o'clock, and it's currently about 5 after 7. What have I lied about? Fuck, Lucille Ball. Goddamn, I didn't even think of it. Mitochondria, good evening, and holy shit. At one point in time, Lucille Ball was the most powerful woman in Hollywood, hands down. Well, it was never Carol Burnett. Carol Burnett, but I don't think she had the well, when we're saying the greatest, are we, cuz it's not about greatest. She said most successful female comedian of all time. I would say in terms of money, she probably does eclipse Lucille Ball just because of the time period. Joan Rivers, Mary Tyler Moore, also great choices. Joan Rivers might be my pick for the greatest. A lot of great names. Danielle, I don't know. She just, Amy Schumer just said she was the most successful female comedian of all time. Oh God, Don Jr.'s coming. He's gonna go grab his woman. Oh, is Don Jr. gonna speak? He smacked her on the ass. Oh, I hope she washed it.
Life is too short to walk this earth for a crusty asshole. Wash your ass.
If you ask me, Kimberly Guilfoyle might need a titty slap.
A titty slap!
Come on now.
Mike, good evening.
I gotta thank Kimberly for that one, although the little kiss I just got, I'm gonna have lipstick and they're gonna pretend I'm doing like the DeSantis high heel drag thing. So for the record, you guys saw the potential transfer of lipstick. It wasn't me, okay? How you guys doing today? What do you think of the world right now, guys? What was Donald Trump right about?
Fucking nothing.
Every damn thing. Right?
Like what?
They accused Donald Trump of everything they said he would do. World War III, tanking the economy, ridiculous policy is all happening under Joe Biden. They're crushing us with their ridiculous policies. They're indoctrinating our kids. They're telling us there's 4,978 genders, and since I started this speech about 90 seconds ago, they've probably added a few more.
They have 2 jokes.
These people have lost their minds, but you know what? They turn a blind eye to it. Right? Imagine it was, say, I don't know.
We're like doing reels.
The Don Jr. laptop from hell. Do you think it would be a problem? Yeah. Do you think if I was getting checks from the Chinese government, you think that'd be a problem?
Ivanka is.
Through Russia collusion and all of those lies, but when you have actual China collusion, it's not a problem.
I don't think anybody's paying you shit because you ain't worth anything.
See, folks, there's rules for you and there's rules for them. The 2020 Summer of Love riots, remember, it was a mostly peaceful protest with buildings burning in the background.
They were set on fire by right-wing agitators.
You take over a couple courthouses, that kind of stuff. I'm told that's an insurrection, but again, it doesn't apply that way, right? Those people can burn down buildings, they can loot, riot, steal, murder. But no, in the name of social justice, it's different, it's fine. You know, yeah, I mean, the Gucci shoes that they stole, that's totally fine. It was for social justice, it's different.
What is he talking about?
Trying to figure that one out, right?
And fuck Gucci.
I'm trying. You may do a better job of this than me, sir. But think about that. Think of the people right now in the last...
She may not be on TV, but she was on the witness stand earlier today. Oh.
For peacefully protesting. Meanwhile, I'm watching anti-Semites chanting for genocide at some of the finest universities. I say finest in air quotes because at this point, they're full of shit.
Going around shit a lot tonight.
They can do that again. No,
A lot of shit flying tonight.
while they mortgage your family's future to the hilt. While they're getting ready to send your children, not theirs, to yet another one of their endless wars. But don't worry, folks, we're told the adults are back in charge. Remember that one? The adults were back in charge. I remember watching our Secretary of State right after the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, right? And I quote, Anthony Blinken, he said, he is shocked and dismayed that the Taliban did not install a more diverse and inclusive government in Afghanistan. I mean, think about this. These people want us to take them seriously. And they're shocked that there wasn't like a trans coalition. You know, last week they were throwing gays off of buildings. This week they're going to have a seat at the table. Did you really think that was going to happen? Yeah. Yes. You should help me with this speech, sir, because... yes, take...
Because he's too coked up.
Because all we do... Yeah. No. Speaking of serious people, right? The UN has, like, Iran on the Human Rights Watch. Like, you know, the world's leading state sponsor of terror gets to sit on that committee. I don't know. Seems a little bit freaking insane, but, you know, that's just me. I have an IQ, unlike the people involved. They were the same people that were on the women's rights panel like 2 years ago. I don't know. They don't seem to be in favor of women's rights, but minor details, right? But we fund all of it. It was like what my father did with NATO. You have an agreement. You're putting X% of GDP towards protecting yourselves. They just choose not to pay. My father said, we're going to make you pay your fair share. How dare they? Because they're used to an America run by freaking morons who are on the take. Those leaders have a deal in paper to actually do X, but they're like, why would we do X if we know that the U.S. will take your hard-earned money and fund it anyway? Right? While you can't...
What are we canceling Justin for now? Oh, Justin had to go get more coffee. Clinically.
I'm the son of a billionaire from Manhattan, and if I go to
He's not a billionaire.
Pissed off? No, what does it tell you? How is it that I get it and they don't? All right. Again, they want to get us in another war. Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell. Yeah, no. All right, we're going to do a little survey because the fake news is here and covering this, and I've done this. A little survey from the crowd. All right. Because I hear from Mitch McConnell that funding the Ukraine is the #1 priority of Republicans across America. See, it sounds like you're with me, but I'll take a chance. There's... I saw Mitch when he wasn't doing a Mitch glitch, you know, when it's just... Sorry.
Can you imagine how it smells in that place?
He'll tell you that funding Ukraine's the #1 priority for Americans right now, Republicans across the board. And I say this, I have been in front of... This crowd alone would have put me in front of more real Republicans than Mitch McConnell has ever been in front of in his entire 4,000-year career. All right.
I'm sure it's insanely overpriced, Warlord.
I've done this. This is the largest group, but between 2,000 and 5,000 people, I've done this. Raise your hand if funding yet another never-ending war in Ukraine is a top 3 priority for you in this room. Sir, you're not raising your hand. You're booing, right? Yeah, okay.
DJ Dub condemns.
He condemned.
Yeah. How about, is it a top 10 issue for you?
I wish the Democrats made fun of each other more.
Because they'll call me fake.
22 voted to censure one.
Social media. I'll be put in the gulags where the Democrats would put us all if they had a choice. Did anyone see a single hand go up that funding Ukraine is a top 10 issue for what? 10,000 people here?
I played you the clip last night of Trump talking about how he's going to lock everybody up.
One person. It wasn't a top 3 issue. It was a top 10 issue for him. And I said, sir, why is it top 10? Well, he goes, I'm from Ukraine. I was like, okay, I understand. So now we've surveyed about 30,000 people, and I have yet, and one guy. But it doesn't matter. He'll still do that. He's still going to try to roll the new Speaker of the House to believe it. They're going to put in front of him intelligence reports, folks. And you know what those intelligence reports are? Also bullshit. Yes.
Get the chant going again.
Propaganda designed to get whatever the deep state wants.
Jelly Roll right behind the podium, getting really into this.
So Mitch, Senate Republicans, rhinos, listen to the people here. For once, we would like some actual representation from our representatives.
We're about 40 minutes away from the GOP presidential primary debate.
Those people who we send to D.C. need to actually start listening to those who send them there. Not to do what they want, not to get some board seat at Raytheon to sell more missiles, to mortgage our children's and our grandchildren's future, so we can fund some of the most corrupt countries in the world and get nothing for it. It's happening in Ukraine.
No, we get something for it.
It happens every time. Because you know what? They don't care.
Stock go up.
The retirement plan is to get on the boards of those companies. You only get on the boards of those companies by selling more missiles. And it's a vicious cycle that goes forever. It never stops.
I mean, he's not wrong about that.
I'm not sending
God, this is what the fuck?
To go die to get Zelensky another house.
It's not going to buy Zelensky a house.
No way.
Zelensky isn't sitting on the board of Raytheon.
They better start listening, because that's what's going on. Where are the checks and balances? Well, we have none.
Apparently, Dustin, the self-reflection of the Republican Party is that democracy is a bad idea now. They can't win elections because they're not popular.
From climate change, led by Lord Priestess Greta Thunberg. COVID became the next religion of the left, right? Led by High Priest Fauci.
Motherfucker, the only people I ever hear talking about COVID anymore is you, the right.
Now it's COVID, and now it's Ukraine. I don't know.
And remember, Trump's lawyers out here talking about how locking up your political opponents
To the American people.
proves we're a banana republic or some shit.
In a position like that, I'd be in jail. No, I would, because, and you know why you know how he lied? Because his emails to his colleagues in medicine are the exact opposite of everything he told the American people. He never met a TV camera he didn't love. And this dwarf that everyone probably beat the shit out of his whole life finally had a moment. Right? Finally had a moment. Was on the cover of every magazine. He has the page, making millions of dollars and other stuff while lying to all of us. This is how our government functions. There's no accountability for that. But Joe Biden
Never met a TV camera he didn't like
and the Biden
as he gets ready to introduce his father, Donald Trump.
mistress and Hunter's girlfriend, which was also his wife, his brother's wife, and I mean, they can all take money from China and nothing happens. I'm wondering why grandchildren, but your favorite president, Donald Trump, but who kept us out of wars, who put us in jobs, who led the strongest economy in American history.
That is not true. None of that is true.
Put him in jail for 1,000 years. And maybe the death penalty, because, we all understand that he is a very young and vibrant man, unlike Joe Biden. But 1,000 years still feels like a lot, doesn't it? Seems excessive, but that's what happens. That's what happens when you challenge the power of the deep state, the power of the swamp. And guys, that's why they're going after my father the way they are. They understand.
Is this Charlie Kirk's brother?
It's worse now than in 16, right?
He's got a really little face.
Possibly happen. The American people would take arguably the least likable
You live in
old
sexual
hag in the
anarchy.
history of old hags, Hillary Clinton, and somehow elect this
She beat Trump by 3 million votes.
It's going to be fine, but now they realize that Trump has your backing. He has the American people. He has a track record now of actually winning and getting things done. You guys make this easy for me. I like to come up here organic. I don't have the note. It's not like Joe Biden, right? Struggling at the teleprompter. The American people are doing great under Bidenomics. Pause for applause. I think someone said it best, right? Then, the stage is about this size. And whatever they gave him to make him, he's never coherent, but borderline semi-coherent. In about 90 seconds, it wears off. And then, I forget who, I saw it somewhere. It was sort of the perfect, and Joe Biden turns into a Roomba. Well, guys,
They're chanting Roomba.
I, for one, know that literally no one should feel safe that a Roomba...
What's a Shane Gillis bit? He's really funny. I like him.
What do you think happens when they call Joe Biden at 3 a.m. when something goes wrong? No, they don't. And you know how they don't? Because on October 7th, when a terrorist organization flew paragliders with machine guns into a daytime concert, murdering and killing innocent women, children in Israel, we didn't get a response from him till after lunch. No, but think about that. Think about that. They couldn't bother to respond because, they couldn't even probably wake him up. He wasn't present, and he's not. Again, none of it matters because Joe Biden, for the Democrats...
Roomba should condemn.
Pushing the radical...
I gotta change it to they condemn.
There are no more Democrats in power. There are radical Marxist communists.
Biden didn't condemn fast enough.
They would jail each and every one of you.
Your crowd was just chanting lock him up.
They're doing that to your grandmother who may have walked in between the velvet ropes taking a selfie on January 6th. It never ends, right? Anyone...
By the way, another January 6th defendant pled guilty today.
They will destroy. They will lock...
Spider MAGA is what they called him because he was the one climbing up the side of the building.
Like the communist dictators, so many of the great people of Hialeah escaped from. When I talk to guys like my friend Jorge, when Jorge Masvidal did this, we did this in 20. We went around. His story, if he gave you the longer form version, is so incredible with his father and escaping. And so many of the people in this very theater right now understand what it means. There's a reason that the boats only go one way, folks. Okay?
Huh?
Despite what Bernie Sanders tells you, it's not so good. He's telling you the great virtues of communism and socialism, you know, from one of his 4 vacation homes, right? It's a little different. But everyone in this room right now understands exactly what we're fighting for. They understand exactly what's at stake. And that's why we need to end the nonsense, you know, the dog catcher debate going on down the road, like, you know. No, but that's the problem. The Republicans are guilty of this stuff too, right? You know why that's continuing? Not because they have a chance. You can see that just by looking at this room, looking at this area. But because there's a couple billionaires that gave more money to a super PAC, and the consultants who are all part of the DC swamp will take about 60 to 75% of that money into their own...
I still can't wrap my head about what MAGA communism even is.
...team to come up with another brochure. It never ends. So they're going to drag that out. They're going to burn all that money that we could be using to defeat the sickness, the depravity.
No. Around here, we want to get down with the sickness.
Marxist party. Guys, we need to end this nonsense, and we need to save our country, because it's not going to save itself. Our leaders have failed us for decades. The results you got from Trump, despite unprecedented incoming from your media, unprecedented assistance, lies, and bullshit from...
What results?
Unprecedented sabotage from Republicans. You got results because you had someone that can actually deliver, someone who'd actually done it, someone who's actually signed the front of a paycheck, not just been a taker. We can do that again, guys, but we cannot do it without each and every one of you calling out the nonsense, calling out the bullshit, talking to your friends, and fighting like you've never fought before. Because, guys, there is a point. There is a point of no return. And they're hoping they get there. They're hoping they demoralize you so badly that you think there's no chance. That you believe, that you don't believe your lying eyes, right? You go to the grocery store.
God, this night is going to take forever.
No, I saw this. Did you guys see the last week in the New York Times? Paul Krugman, Nobel laureate economist.
Yes, he is.
Nobel Prize in economics. And he says...
So he probably knows better than you.
Beautiful graph. It shows inflation coming down. The problem is there's an asterisk. Inflation, he says, is going great if you do not include a couple of things. Everything, yeah. Inflation is going along perfectly if you don't include housing.
Well, DJ Dub, as George Carlin once said, call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
And transportation. Hey, if you don't include literally everything that you need to survive, things are going great, folks. You can get transgender surgeries like 50% off. Everything else you're paying like 3x. That, you know, minor details. But that's what they're doing. They changed the way they record the statistics. They changed the methodologies they did to make it look great because they think that you're just going to blindly follow their nonsense. But we get it. We see it.
I mean, all the people in the crowd blindly follow your nonsense.
They can't fool us anymore because we're on to their lies and we see it. It's not going to stop them. It's not going to stop them, guys. Only you can stop it.
Cindy, good evening.
Only you can put an end to it. But I see you. You guys will. Because we love freedom. We love our country. We love God. We love our Constitution. And we are going to fight for our children and the next generation. Thank you, Hialeah. God bless you all. Thank you.
So once again, Trump was scheduled to speak about 30 minutes ago. Let me kill it so I don't get copyright on me. An Elvis song? Was it Elvis's cousin was running for governor in, was it Mississippi? Lost. Tate Reeves won election. I don't think Elvis would be a Trump supporter. So, Trump's scheduled to speak any minute now. He was scheduled at 7 o'clock. But we will be taking the NBC News GOP Republican presidential primary debate. I guess that was a little redundant, wasn't it? We'll be taking that live come 8 o'clock. Do want to point out a couple pieces of news. The Minnesota Supreme Court has dismissed an effort to block Trump from the state's primary ballot. This is one of several cases currently working their way through the courts. The other high-profile one, Colorado, they've been arguing this week. It was last week. Effort to get Trump off of the ballot. Minnesota Supreme Court has dismissed the effort to block Trump from the state's primary ballot on the grounds of the 14th Amendment. Also, if you're on World War III watch, the U.S. has struck eastern Syria in response to attacks. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said U.S. forces conducted a self-defense strike on a facility used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. We'll get into the details here soon. Let's go back to the Trump rally.
5 years, 10 years. Don't worry. Take the anxiety out of that.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend
is on your screen. Take advantage of the fact that they want to help you reduce your tax bill right now. Go to it while we have a few minutes before President Trump walks out on stage. The energy in this place is electric. You know, this is a thing where you've got a GOP debate.
I'm pretty sure you can't travel to Cuba.
I'm sure they don't have the crowd that we've got here. And it's so interesting. We were right about the...
Yeah, Richard, that sounds odd, doesn't it? Self-defense against strikes on illegal U.S. bases.
We thought he was going to be speaking at 7, but then speaking at closer to 8 o'clock. People came after work, and man, did they pack it out. You know, I would guess there's probably 10,000 people here, maybe? There's a lot of people here.
There's a lot of people.
I'm thinking you guys can't really do math.
You take your 30-30 and a third chance.
And this all builds up to what has been the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party. And if you look at the polls, the latest polls, there's a reason why President Trump is down here in South Florida. He leads, and he has been really adding on to the percentage of approval that he's getting from the Latin American population, Cuban Americans down here, Central Americans down here. He continues to build on that base. There's a reason why he's here, and I really see that is going to translate into, as we get into next year, even a higher percentage, not only here in Florida, but across this country.
Across the nation. And as they see these...
I can't imagine he gets anywhere near his vote total from 2020.
Really supporting him. It's just going to catch fire. I mean, it becomes acceptable within the community, right? And so you start to see
his support in the Republican base has been unwavering.
is growing in this demographic, and it's only going to continue to grow.
But his actual support across the country is not growing.
Are often deeply Catholic, very family oriented. They have very strong family.
Oh, so you can get like a special visa?
Their families. And this woke agenda.
Probably have to go through the State Department and shit to get a waiver.
They're pushing them into the Republican camp, into not even the Republican camp, it's into Donald Trump's camp, because they've just got these strong family values in these cultures, and the left doesn't have it right now.
And it's interesting because if you look at all of the obstacles that President Trump has had to overcome during this whole process, legal proceedings, you've got numerous legal proceedings, so no one knows that's better than you.
91 felony charges.
That continues. His approval ratings continue to grow because of that.
Among Republicans.
I'm tired of it. I mean, we've been watching this for 7-8 years at this point. The Russia, Ukraine, you know, all of these crazy stories about Donald Trump. We've been listening to it for so many years that people are just tired of it and they don't buy it.
Yeah, it's a continuum. Okay, before we go into our next speaker, let's remind everybody also, go over to Birch.
So we're going to have somebody else before Trump?
Gold, silver, and precious.
You don't get any better than Roseanne.
Digital dollar and this move away from an actual currency. That should scare everyone. My friends over the Birch Gold Group want to make it really easy to take that first step in investing in gold, silver, and precious metal. Simply text the words Trump to 98.
I feel like I don't have to say this to my chat, but that is totally a scam.
98. They'll send you a free information kit. Matter of fact, on a qualifying...
It's crypto for old people.
Up to $10,000 in free gold. They'll also show you how to transition.
Only 91 at this moment, Shelly. I really hope they add another 9 and get it up to 100.
For tonight, simply text the words Trump to 989898. That is the Birch Gold Group. We talked about the economy with many people earlier today, since we were kicked off this broadcast at 2 o'clock local time. Everyone's concerned about the economy, and it's interesting. Don Jr. threw out a question in the crowd about if funding a war in Ukraine was even in your top 10 of the most priorities right now.
DJ, I don't blame you.
For that.
Right.
It is.
I've talked about it here on my stream. Warlord has asked me to come to the UK.
People are struggling due to Bidenomics.
I feel like it is a privileged position of me.
Open border is an issue. Taxes are an issue. Over-regulating.
If I was to leave the country.
Having a hard time making a profit in their businesses. Education, the school system is putting...
I need to stay and fight.
Parents are now having to have the burden of action.
Because there's a lot of people who are going to be far more affected by Trump policies than myself.
These kids are being indoctrinated in schools, and so parents are having to
and it would be privileged to me to leave and go to another country.
The Biden administration is doing is
oh my God, the Terminator bobblehead.
It's about taking apart
the Trumpinator.
Education, and that's one of the things that a lot of people hear. He's promised to do that, and there's two things that the crowd really erupts, and it all has to do with kids, and one of them is stopping the gender-affirming care on minors. That tends to be a very popular thing amongst the base.
That's not popular at all.
The Department of Education, and really getting our education back to where it needs to be, because that is part of the reason why you're...
If fascists take over,
because these kids are not being taught.
And I gotta take one in the head for the shit that I said on stream. I'm cool with that.
Even I believe it was Oregon passed a law that said they weren't going to teach. I'm sorry, it may have been a regulation. They passed something saying that they didn't want to teach kids math and reading because they thought it was racist because minority students struggled with those subjects.
That's not true at all.
Teach anybody how to read or do math.
Yeah, schools aren't going to teach anybody how to read or do math anymore.
I think Oregon did it too.
In Oregon as well. So you've got the education, of course, you got the open border. I was really surprised how many people we talked to tonight that was from Cuba, from Venezuela, from South America. That said, the first thing that President Trump should do when he gets in office is to close the border. And we're seeing a lot of that. Now, if you missed some of the talking points we had earlier on the show,
Fair enough, Richard. Well, it's
much close the border right now.
It's arguable that fascists have always been in charge in this country.
And I don't know, impeach Mayorkas and really hold people accountable for what's going on at our southern border. That could be easily done if we just come together as a conference and do that. But these border policies that President Trump had, they worked. They worked.
Yes, they worked. As you know, we discussed this earlier, but all Joe Biden had to do was go to the beach. Don't touch anything. Just go to the beach. But he undid all of President Trump's policies, and look at the mess that our nation is in. I mean, it's not surprising that we're having the problems that we're having. And I think what President Trump did that was so important was he outed the fact that it is the Democrats, it is the political establishment, it's the rhinos, it is this political class of people.
It's everybody that doesn't agree with them.
Not the conservatives that want to stand for family values and stand for what they believe in. Conservative values do not infringe on anybody.
This woman needs it. What?
It works the other way.
What?
People struggled to see that before. Even under Trump, they struggled to see.
Conservative values don't infringe on anybody's rights. This woman deserves a titty slap.
Behind Donald Trump, because people realize that the policies worked, his motivations were right, they were in the right place, and he actually did help Americans, and Americans could thrive under his leadership.
If you look at what's happening in the independents, I mean,
can we get that bullshit chant going again?
As well.
Yep.
Music dies. All right. Looks like we got another
Danger
video.
Zone.
Little Danger Zone action. So independence is going.
Danger Zone.
You've got a lot of, I even think, moderate Democrats to a certain point, because I think their party has been somewhat hijacked from these radical left. It's not the Democrat Party that our parents might have seen when we were little, and even when they were growing up. So the party has changed very much, and I think that's all in the swing to President Trump. I think he can take advantage of the fact this country has been so lost and so out of control the last 2.5 years.
Well, to be fair, Shelley, I want to be inside everyone's uterus too.
That he had work, and they know that his personality.
Where's it at?
I mean, we often talk about the war in Ukraine.
You live in sexual anarchy.
Talk about it tonight. That would not have happened if he was in office. And people say, "Well, how can you say that?" Well, guess what? Putin. They talk a lot. Him and Putin talked a lot, and there's no doubt that Putin would not have invaded Ukraine.
Bullshit.
Of course not. Well, he invaded Ukraine under Obama. The last time Biden was in office, he did. And then he took a 4-year sabbatical while Donald Trump was in office, and then he invaded again under Biden.
Right.
So, yeah, I think the track record speaks for itself. That Donald Trump, and I've said this before, I actually think Donald Trump, even though he's not in office right now, the threat of him coming back into office is what is currently holding back World War III. Because we know the global powers that be are trying to start World War III. The elitists in the United States are trying to start World War III. Why hasn't it started? Because of Donald Trump. People know that if he gets back into office, he's going to level everything. I don't mean
what?
With explosion. Like he's going to shut it all down.
Yeah, he's going to pull the U.S. out of Ukraine, and Russia will take over.
He could be in office. I think is keeping World War III at bay.
And we talk about the leadership and strength, and that goes across all levels of.
Oh, I'm sorry, PP girl.
Great leadership that has strength. In other words, they're willing to make decisions in the best of the American people, no matter how unpopular it might be with some. And I think President Trump did that on the world stage. And of course,
we are 16 minutes away
business. And
from the GOP presidential primary debate. Trump was scheduled for 7 o'clock.
For decades, they changed the game. He was a businessman. He made sure the trade deals were fair.
But he has not spoke yet. Clinically, unfortunately, you missed Roseanne. Roseanne was probably the most entertaining part that we've watched tonight.
Check where the American taxpayers just keep funding these countries for no reason. So he has a certain dominance on the global stage, and that's what we need right now. Look at Joe Biden, and we can do jokes aside, and there's memes, obviously, of him falling down and tripping. But he is a weak old man. In all due respect, he is a weak old man, and I think that does
paranormal. I have no clue what you're talking about. A spring lock failure.
And I know it's sad, but there is something to be said about having confidence. And when you enter a room, when you enter a meeting, there's a sense of you're in control. Joe Biden doesn't know what meeting he just walked into at this point.
Or out of.
Or out of.
He doesn't know where he is.
And so I say that all.
I mean, I'm a fan of the show Roseanne, not Roseanne the person.
Physically walk into a room.
Not the last couple seasons when Roseanne had a lot of power.
Organize the way they need to do it.
Absolutely.
And I'm a much bigger fan now that they've kicked Roseanne off and it's just the Connors.
People are very deferential to him.
Yeah.
It looks. Oh, I thought we might.
Oh well.
Oh.
I like some of the ads there, and of course,
yeah, I haven't seen this
they're
one
always
yet.
the Trump team always does an amazing job.
They're coming up with good ones.
Campaign stuff.
Yeah.
But so you've got the physical presence of President Trump being a leader. You got his policies, and you got the support. I mean, folks, you're seeing.
Is he that much younger? I thought it was like 2 or 3.
1,000 people inside here on a Wednesday night in South Florida.
They're close in age.
Debate going on somewhere in the vicinity. This man can pack the house no matter what day of the week, no matter what time it is. I challenge you, show me another Republican candidate right now that can show up on a night like tonight and do 10% of what he has in here.
Well, there's no other Republican that's a celebrity.
None of them can. None of our presidential contenders.
Trump isn't a politician. He's just a fucking celebrity.
And I think they all would love.
Bernie Sanders could annihilate that crowd, though.
Have turnouts like this. Like there's probably close to 10,000. I would imagine.
Barack Obama could annihilate that crowd.
Close to 10,000 plus. You've got standing room on the.
DJ like to me, the show was all the other characters. It was the great writing, and it's that without Roseanne's obnoxiousness now. They replaced her with Peggy Bundy. Fuck, what's her name? I forget the actress's name.
Stadium that holds 10,000. Whether
I love her so much. Leela on Futurama.
Whatever it is, he packs it out every single time. And he's not a rock star in the sense where people are coming to sing songs and party. It's a speech, and it's largely his speechwriters are fantastic. He does a great job with it.
But that's Dan's wife now, is Peggy Bundy.
Many times, and yet people continue to come.
The new season of Rick and Morty, the first episode sucked.
We want to make sure that you follow.
But then the second episode, I laughed. I had to pause from laughing. Katie Seagal, that's it.
You can follow me on Truth Social at Brian, Brian. Make sure you're following Right Side across all of our social media platforms.
Yeah, Katie Seagal is married to Dan in The Connors now.
Have an opportunity for people to follow you as well.
Yep, you can follow me at Christina_Bob, and then if you're interested.
Thanks, Bob.
Stealing your vote.
I was just going to say, if you want to buy the book.
Yeah.
We're not even going to get Trump before we have to cut to the
story of the 2020 election and what it means for 2024. And
we have to cut to the GOP debate.
November 3rd, 2020.
The new voice actors for Rick and Morty, flawless.
Yeah.
With him.
That was fun.
And I thought that was a perfect timing for him to come out because it is, it's something that's on everybody's mind.
The Connors are like on their last season, I think.
We know the support the president has across the country.
I think that'll make it like 5 without Roseanne.
Do enough to secure the election.
I think.
In 2024, so that when America goes to the ballot box next November, that we can trust the fact that we've had an open, transparent election. Based upon all that you've seen so far, are we any better off now than we were back in 2020?
Yes, we are better off. We're not where I would like us to be a year from now.
I'm amazed that he wasn't scheduled to speak at 8 o'clock originally.
It's thanks to great patriots like our viewers.
I mentioned that last night.
And really helped to clean up, scrub voter rolls. No matter what your capabilities are, no matter how much time you have, your resources, there is a place for you in cleaning up our local elections because it's something that needs to happen from the bottom up.
But I will say I think there's only been 3 episodes. I don't know if there was one this past weekend I missed. But the 2 other episodes of Rick and Morty this season have actually been
from the top down. So
pretty funny.
Get involved in your county. Thanks to the great.
Like seriously, the first 2 minutes of episode 2, I laughed harder than I laughed at anything in episode 1.
Cause, C-A-U-S-E, cause.
Had to pause. I was dying.
And you can just send them an email, contact them, and say, hey, I live in this county in this state, and they will put you in touch with an election integrity
But I thought Rick and Morty has been getting worse as it went along. Like, the first 2 or 3 seasons are amazing, and then it's kind of been downhill since.
We just basically localized,
I say that, but like, my favorite episode of the entire run was probably like last
I know
season.
that in Ohio, they kind of pushed further into abortion as far as a woman's right, which we know that Roe v. Wade does kick that down to the states. So that came up. The legalization of marijuana, recreational marijuana in Ohio, that passed overwhelming. And I really think
Dix, good evening.
there's a couple races that I feel like Republicans did not show up for those races. And I hope that as we get closer to 2024, that the participation rate, the voter turnout for Republicans will be high, because President Trump often says we've got the policies in place to change this country. If the plan is in place, we just
Oh, they are definitely going to try to change the country.
the vote, come out and make it impossible.
Well, the debate starts in 10 minutes. We are 10 minutes away from the debate.
Trump from legitimately winning the election.
Well, I think what yesterday proved was that the voters showed up for Donald Trump and no one else. I mean, that's effectively what happened. I mean, you didn't.
She's kind of right about that.
In a lot of these places. I mean, the Mississippi governor, Republican governor, won re-election. The down ballot in Kentucky was all Republican, with the one exception of the governor voting Democrat. I thought that's an interesting race. That
The right has been all up in arms about the Kentucky race, but as someone who is from Kentucky,
but it is interesting.
yeah, you don't know what happened in Kentucky because you have no idea about Kentucky politics.
It all went solidly Republican.
Andy Beshear is the son of an incredibly popular governor,
The incumbent, so that's not
Steve Beshear.
unheard of. But it's interesting that Republicans would vote.
He won following an incredibly unpopular Republican named Matt Bevin.
Have a win last month with Jeff Landry of Louisiana, the Attorney General turned governor of Louisiana. So that's a great victory there.
Yeah, and Jeff
That's a fascist.
fantastic. He's such a great patriot. He's great.
Yeah, Reeves won re-election.
I'm really excited to have him in that office.
So I guess the bottom line is here, as we get closer to 2024, and it seems like we're just now less than a year away. I mean, think about this. And we said this earlier. We're sitting right now on whatever date today is, November 7th, I guess, or 8th.
Yeah.
They are drunk.
Either we know the results of the election and we're very happy with the results of the election, or we're scratching our heads going, no, wait a minute. How did they stop voting in the middle of the night and then resume 3 days later, and all of a sudden we have a different outcome?
Right.
We want to make sure that does not happen. So, like Christina said earlier, volunteer to be a
Flash, that would actually be a really good idea.
local level. That's where
I'd watch that.
to help be the eyes and ears of the American people, because it's, a lot of times we need some accountability, and if they have somebody in the room watching them, the shenanigans that we saw in 2020.
DJ Dub, I've been accused of many things multiple times in my life. All of them are true. All of them are true.
Whether you volunteer, whether you work for your county, any way you can get involved. And if you're physically limited, like you can't leave or you can't do things.
Now, a gal at my college told the college I made her uncomfortable.
Do these types of things. So just
And I think they assumed I was sexually harassing her.
work for you and get involved and do it. Because
But no, it had more to do with religion.
All right, so we're coming up. Let me check
what
check
time
the
is
time.
Oh,
It
we're
is
close.
7:53. My guess is that this is going to kick off around 8 o'clock. So
Yeah,
we've got
we
about
got
7 minutes left, and I want everyone right now to share this broadcast. Hit share, post it.
She's a cutie. What in the... Ma'am?
Text a friend the link and say, hey, check out this. I know there's a GOP debate going on, but don't worry about watching that, because the plan for America, quite honestly, is going to step on the stage.
Can we keep it on her? Let's watch her lip sync battle.
Make sure you do all that. Also, make sure you follow us across on social media. This is a time to go thank our sponsor. Go thank all of our...
No, cut back to her.
Go to Birch Gold Group. Go text Trump to 989898. Get that information about getting into gold, silver, and precious metals. Go over to the Wellness Company. Get that medical emergency kit that we've been talking about in case the next pandemic comes. You have that.
Well, I mean, even the staff said he was abusive.
Experts that we have. There's all...
And then he became incredibly erratic and cut himself off from the staff.
and do just this. So tonight we want you to make sure you support all of our sponsors, as they are always here for us. And of course, make sure you subscribe to Right Side. There's a lot of times you get people, this is the first time they've ever watched us. They're like, hey, somebody said you should, here's one way.
Unfortunately, I've been watching you guys for years.
They get the link, they watch us, they go, hey, it's the first time I've seen you. So welcome into Right Side Broadcasting Network. Also, go download our app. Go to your Google, your Android rather, your iTunes store.
I can't believe we're not even going to get Trump before the debate. I'm sorry. I apologize.
And while you're there, go over to our website, rsbnetwork.com. That's rsbnetwork.com. Sign up for our newsletter. The cool thing about the newsletter is not only...
Goldfish, you got here just in time. We are 5 minutes away from the debate. You missed Roseanne. That might be the most entertaining thing we're going to watch all night.
Sign up for our newsletter, rsbnetwork.com/newsletter.
Trump was supposed to speak at 7.
Get it to your inbox, and Grace Saldana does.
He's doing. I stole this from Rick and Morty. He's doing the slow ramp.
Let me tell you, you and I both know this. When we get into this 2024 campaign, it is going to heat up. Things are going to change almost on the daily on this stuff.
It's gonna get wild. I think. Right at the beginning of the year, I think it's going to get really...
Whatever happened to Virgil, Texas?
Forward to it. I think it's, we're going to save America.
Somebody needs to ask Brianna Joy Gray. Whatever happened to Virgil, Texas?
Make sure you know what's going on. Make sure you know where you're needed, because this is an all-hands-on-deck moment. So we need everybody involved. We need everybody involved.
I liked Crispin a lot better anyway.
If elections just don't move you, get involved on your school boards. Get involved in your, your districts on education. Whatever issue moves you, get involved in that, because we need good Americans involved in that.
Yeah, get involved, and of course, all the things that are happening in the House right now will be there as well. You can always rely on Right Side to be able to stream all the House proceedings, all the oversight meetings, all the...
Starlight, good evening.
For just about every one of those as well. So make sure you tune in.
We're getting ready to take the GOP debate here in about 3 minutes.
As we move forward, not only on...
He's going by Homer, South Dakota now.
Inquiries that we have on Joe Biden. Mayorkas, I think, is going to drop here the next 1 or 2 weeks. We'll be on that as well. So make sure you stay up to what's going on in the House, because it's important that we have a new speaker.
We're getting ready to start the debate here in about 3 minutes.
I've met him. I've had interaction with him. I've got nothing but...
After he was accused, he disappeared, but then he came back, and then he got accused again and disappeared.
And take up the agenda that is best for the American people, and try to close his ears.
If I remember that timeline of events correctly.
Industrial complex that wants to just fun wars. He must focus in.
Well, hey, ladies.
People want. Don Jr. said it earlier about what the priority is. It's
a couple of cuties in the crowd tonight.
It's getting out of these global, endless...
There's even a sexy black dude I saw dancing back there.
Listens to the American people and not the...
What the fuck is up with this shit?
Love nothing more than to get their claws into him and to make them the next kind of rhino speaker that we do not need at this point in the game. We need fighters. We need leaders. I think Johnson's it. He's got it in him.
Yeah.
But we just need to make them happen. We just need to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this earlier. I think it's important that he show commitment to the conservative agenda early on. This is not something that he can sit around on and say, "Oh, but we're..."
Yeah, he left Chapo after the first accusation. He let it die down a couple months, and then he came back and he had his own thing, and he did that podcast with Brianna Joy Gray.
I think he will do it. I think we'll see more action out of him than we saw out of McCarthy.
Aw. I'm sorry you burnt your mouth on chicken nugget.
Time of having strongly worded
chicken nuggies are supposed to bring love and hope.
Your floor speech or some C-SPAN.
They're not supposed to hurt you.
Those days of just getting that and walking away, it's over.
Some Republicans still talk about term limits.
Your actual vote on things is the most important thing that you can do right now. So I'm just making a plea to all those in Congress and the Senate that the time for kabuki theater with the American people of having this stance of being America first, but then you go to vote and it's everybody but America first. Those days are over. It's time to put the American people first. And I'm telling you, if we were to do a rally in some of these districts where these Congress people reside in, and we were to bring up...
I think it was called bad faith.
Vote against and vote for, they would be shocked because people that you thought was so MAGA and so America.
I feel, okay, as a broadcaster, I feel sorry for these two because they've had to vamp for the last 30 minutes.
Need to change.
Now, not that I couldn't do it. Not that I don't sit here and talk by myself for hours and hours on stream every night. Here we go.
Tonight, a critical test in the race for the White House. 5 Republicans battling to become their...
Okay. Fair enough. I'll pull Trump over here, and if anything happens, we can take Trump again if we need to.
Commander-in-Chief amid 2 wars on the world stage. How they plan to tackle stubborn inflation and how they can unite a deeply divided...
Oh my God, is Lester the moderator?
Best to take on President Biden. And can any of them first beat former President Trump, who's far ahead in the polls? The candidates are here. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
From NBC News, the Republican presidential debate. Live from the Adrian Arst Center in Miami, Florida.
I mean, WWE is kind of the best, the best analogy. Shut up, Lester!
I'm Lester Holt, anchor of NBC Nightly News.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Welker, moderator of NBC's Meet the Press.
Hello, I'm Hugh Hewitt, host of Salem Radio's The Hugh Hewitt Show. We are now just 68...
Why do we have Hugh Hewitt there?
...when Republican primary voters will begin to determine their party's nominee for president. Tonight, we'll question 5 candidates seeking that nomination on how they're best prepared to be commander-in-chief. And, of course, how best to bring down prices.
I wish I had some alcohol.
We have 2 hours for a serious debate on the issue.
It's going to be a long 2 hours. I don't even have any pot.
Candidates will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for answers and the opportunity for a closing statement. Follow-ups will be at the discretion of all of us at the table, the moderators. Invoking a candidate's name or policy does not necessarily mean the mentioned candidate is entitled to a response. I want to caution all the candidates not to interrupt.
Congratulations, PP Girl. Is it just me, or is the audio off on the stream?
Critical issues we're facing specifically on the world stage, we want everyone to hear every word you have to say. Continued interruptions may result in loss of additional questions. And to our audience, please hold your applause so that the candidates can be heard. With that said, let's have a good debate. All right, our first question, the opening question.
It'll be a debate. I don't know about good.
Donald Trump is the first ex-president in more than 100 years to remains popular among Republican primary voters as his legal challenges mount. Governor DeSantis, let me begin with you on this one. Speak to Republican voters who are supporting Donald Trump. Why should you and not him be the Republican nominee to face Joe Biden a year from now?
This country is in trouble, and the elites that have put us here, they don't care about you. They don't care that you're having to grapple with higher grocery prices or have higher gas prices. They don't care that your family's less secure because of the open border that's allowed drugs and even terrorists to come into this country.
Well, looks good now. I was trying to pull up Peacock.
And let this country continue its downward spiral. We need leadership, and we need it now. I'll take the hits, I'll take the arrows, I'll take the slings, because ultimately it's not about me. It's about you. I will fight for you. I will make sure to lead this country's revival, and I will win for you and your family. Actions speak louder than words. We don't have time for excuses, and it's not something that we're going to be able to have all these distractions. As a veteran, I will get the job done. Now, if you look where we are now, it's a lot different than we were in 2016. And Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing. In Florida, I showed how it's done. 1 year ago here, we won a historic victory, including a massive landslide right here in Miami-Dade County. That's how we have to do it.
Wow, I thought he was going to get booed.
As the nominee, next November, I'll get the job done, and as president, I will deliver.
Your time
for
is
you.
up. Let me turn to Ambassador Haley. Audience, let me turn to Ambassador Haley. Why you and not the former president?
Well, I think you look at the fact that we're almost $34 trillion in debt. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills. You have parents who are worried about what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. There's no transparency. We have anti-Semitism all over our college campuses, and students feel unsafe. You've got an open border where terrorists can come through, and we've got wars happening all over us, and there are dangers around us. You know, everybody wants to talk about President Trump. Well, I can talk about President Trump. I can tell you that I think he was the right president at the right time. I don't think he's the right president now. I think that he put us $8 trillion in debt, and our kids are never going to forgive us for that. I think the fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues, now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that we can't live in the past. We can't live in other headlines. We've got to start focusing on what's going to make America strong and proud. And that's what I'm focused on doing. Let's make sure we pay down our debt. I think we need an accountant in the White House. Let's make sure that we have transparency in the classroom. As a mom, I know what that means. Let's make sure we secure our borders. So
You know we have a comptroller, right?
Let's get crime down, because our families want to know that they can be safe no matter where they go. And as the wife of a combat veteran, I will tell you, a military needs to know we have our back, and we need to make sure that America is strong.
Ambassador, thank you very much.
Roaring ovation for Haley.
Let me just caution the audience, let's not go down this road. We've asked you to please
shut up, Lester.
Yourselves, it would be helpful so we can hear the candidates, because these are important issues and the voters want and need to hear them. Mr. Ramaswamy, let me turn to you. Please make your case. Why should you be the nominee and not the former president?
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. It was a cancer to the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk, 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. Do you think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate?
I wouldn't doubt that happens.
And so the fact of the matter is, I mean, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed.
It was Brett Baer in 2016 or 2020, wasn't it?
Hillary Clinton made up disinformation. Answer the question. Go.
Mr. Roberts.
Sorry. This is how we get our country back. We need accountability because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
and they're going to rig this election.
Your time is up.
Accountability.
Let me turn to Governor Christie. Why you?
Trump is still yet to take the stage.
Audience, let's not do this. Let's not do this. Let's let the candidates.
Shut up, Lester.
Why you and not former President Trump?
Well, Lester, look, you said it at the beginning of the debate. We are dealing with extraordinarily important issues facing this country right now. We have our greatest ally in the Middle East under fire from a terrorist group that has committed to wiping them and every Jewish person in this world off the map.
Really? I didn't know Saudi Arabia was under attack.
Ukraine, with Vladimir Putin, a communist KGB dictator, who wants to put the old band back together. He's starting in Ukraine, and he's going to move to the Baltics and Poland after that. We have inflation in this country that is choking every American family that wants to try to rise up and give their children a better life. And tonight, we need to decide which president is going to be the one to tackle the big issues, who's going to make this country look once again, not just inward, but look outward at the world and say America is the country, the indispensable nation that makes this a safer world. And in a safer world, American innovation, American hard work has always been the thing that has driven our country to greater things. I'm going to be the president who will do those big things. We're not going to be small, and I'll say this about Donald Trump. Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country, and it needs to be said plainly.
Governor, thank you. Let me turn to
Trump's still yet to take the stage. They actually have Sarah Huckabee Sanders out there.
Make your case to Republican voters.
Well, certainly. What I would say without any question is that the truth of my life destroys the lies of the radical left. We need a president and a candidate who will actually help our base solidify and attract independent voters into our party. The Great Opportunity Party is now winning back African-American voters and Hispanic voters because we are working on a foundation based on faith. Our nation is facing some deep challenges. It is the loss of faith in this nation that is a part of the erosion that we're seeing every single day. It's restoring faith, restoring our Christian values that will help this nation once again become the city on the hill. When Ronald Reagan talked about the city on the hill, he was coming from Matthew 5. When President Lincoln talked about a house divided, that was Mark. Our founding documents speak to the importance of a faith foundation. You don't have to be for America to work for you, but America does not work without a faith-filled Judeo-Christian foundation. I would be the president that helps us restore faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in our future. Without that focus, none of the issues, the policies matter. We have to get back to being a nation that is, in fact, the city on the hill, that believes in each other enough for us to fight for that future.
Senator Scott, thank you. We're going to turn.
I would point you to the founding document, the Treaty of Tripoli, which says that we are in no way founded on the Christian faith.
And the Republican-Jewish coalition, and then from Kristen and Hugh. So as we continue forward, the Israel-Hamas war is barely a month old. Tonight, Israeli troops are fighting inside Gaza City with over 200 hostages who remain captive there, and civilian casualties mount inside Gaza. As President of the United States, what would you be urging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do at this moment? Governor DeSantis.
I would be telling Bibi, finish the job once and for all with these butchers, Hamas. They're terrorists.
Not even on a first name basis, calling him his nickname.
If they could, he cannot live with that threat right by his country. That Hamas should release every hostage and they should unconditionally surrender. I'm sick of hearing the media, I'm sick of hearing other people blame Israel just for defending itself. We will stand with Israel in word and in deed.
Oh, that's not what I'm blaming Israel for. I'm blaming them for funding and propping up Hamas.
Biden's neglect has been atrocious. We had Floridians that were over there after the attack. He left them stranded. They couldn't get flights out. So I scrambled resources in Florida. I sent planes over to Israel, and I brought back over 700 people to safety. There could have been more hostages had we not acted. And I'll tell you this, I met the first plane load when they came to Florida, and one of the mothers pointed to a 6-year-old daughter, and she said, my daughter had been saying the last 2 nights, Mommy, I don't want to hear any more bombs, no more rockets. I just want to get back to Florida. So there's a difference between words and deeds. We acted and we saved lives.
Thank you. Ambassador Haley, what would you do? What would you be urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do? Would you consider a humanitarian pause, for example?
The first thing I said to him when it happened was I said, finish them. Finish them. And the reason is I worked on this every day when I was at the United Nations. And we have to remember that they have to, 1, eliminate Hamas, 2, support Israel with whatever they need whenever they need it, and 3, make sure we bring our hostages home. We need to be very clear-eyed to know there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be
no Hamas without the Netanyahu government.
Without Iran. And there wouldn't be the Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq that are trying to hit our military men and women if it hadn't been for Iran. And who is funding Iran right now? China is buying oil from Iran. Russia is getting drones and missiles from Iran. And there is an unholy alliance. We need to be clear-eyed. The last thing we need to do is to tell Israel what to do. The only thing we should be doing is supporting them and eliminating Hamas. It is not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to this Islamic terrorism, and we need to make sure that we have their backs in that process.
Never trust anyone that says it's the tip.
Mr. Ramaswamy, any daylight between you and the candidates we just heard on this issue, on what you would tell the Prime Minister?
Not in terms of what I would tell the Prime Minister, no. In fact, I would go one step further. The founding vision of Israel was based on the idea that they don't want to depend on anybody else's sympathy or direction in defending themselves. So what I would tell Bibi is that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend itself. I would tell him to smoke those terrorists on his southern border, and then I'll tell him as President of the United States, I'll be smoking the terrorists on our southern border. That's his responsibility. This is our responsibility. That's how we move forward. But I want to be careful.
It's never just the tip.
The mistakes from the neocon establishment of the past. Corrupt politicians in both parties spent trillions, killed millions, made billions for themselves in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting wars that sent thousands of our sons and daughters, people my age, to die in wars that did not advance anyone's interests, adding $7 trillion to our national debt. And Joe Biden sold off our foreign policy. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine. That's why we're sending $200 billion back to that same country. The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first, or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
All right,
In which case we've got 2 of them on stage
Mr.
tonight.
Ramaswamy, thank you. Senator Scott, yes. Senator, same question to you about, you're the president.
Hate him, but I'm glad he's there.
The Prime Minister, you tell him what?
Well, number one, I would tell Prime Minister Netanyahu, not only do you have the responsibility and the right to wipe Hamas off of the map, we will support you. We will be there with you. We'll stand shoulder to shoulder. There will be no daylight. But I would change the station a little bit, though, and head back home to America.
Fudgy, good evening.
President Biden, diplomacy only is a weak strategy. Appeasement leads to war. From President Obama to President Biden, Obama sent millions to Iran. Frankly, President Biden has sent billions to Iran. That is why I've said that there's blood dripping from the hands of President Obama and President Biden. I would tell President Biden with great clarity, if you want to stop the 40+ attacks on military personnel in the Middle East, you have to strike in Iran. If you want to make a difference, you cannot just continue to have strikes in Syria on warehouses. You actually have to cut off the head of the snake, and the head of the snake is Iran and not simply their proxies. In order for us to—
Is he pushing for war with Iran?
From America, we have to be in a position of strength. As President of the United States, my foreign policy is simple. You cannot negotiate with evil. You have to destroy it.
All right, Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, I want to get you to weigh in here.
Look, Lester, these problems are so big and serious that the first thing I would say to Prime Minister Netanyahu is pretty simple. America is here, no matter what it is you need at any time, to preserve the state of Israel. Remember that Hamas's main goal is to get rid of Israel, is to get Israel absolutely off the map. Now, there are 3 things I think I would say to him when he asked for advice. The first I would say is that it is absolutely your obligation to protect the territorial integrity of Israel. Secondly, to make sure you protect the security and the safety of your people. Every time something happens to compromise either one of those things, it creates greater unrest in the entire region. Second, you must go in and make sure that Hamas can never do this again. The fact is that Israel and their intelligence community failed. They failed here, and they failed the people of the state of Israel. And so we need to work closely and better together to make sure, one, that they're degraded, and two, that we know everything that's going on inside the Gaza Strip when it's going on, so that something like this can't happen to kill 1,400 individuals again. And the third thing is to keep your eye on the ball. Make sure that we continue to isolate Iran, work with the reasonable nations in the Middle East, the other Arab nations who want to partner with you, and make sure that we continue to isolate Iran so that their only friends in the world are the part of the evil foursome: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea.
Governor Christie, thank you very much. And we're going to continue in this vein right now with a question from Matthew Brooks, the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, a partner of the Republican National Committee in this debate. Here it is.
Given attacks by Iranian-backed proxy groups on U.S. military bases in Syria and Iraq, attacks that have wounded approximately 24 of our U.S. servicemen, do you support the use of military force by the United States against Iran?
Governor Haley, would you please answer that?
Yes, I'd first like to say they're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
We've got two of you on stage.
The second thing that I will say is I wear heels. They're not for a fashion statement. They're for ammunition. What we need to be doing for Iraq and Syria is, first of all, the idea that our men and women could be targeted. And that
Vivek liked that. He wants those heels on his face. Maybe on his balls.
Unthinkable. We need to understand this is Iran giving the green light, telling them what to do.
You live in
we shouldn't be
sexual
doing
anarchy.
the tit for tat like what Joe Biden has done. We need to go and take out their infrastructure that they are using to make those strikes with, so they can never do it again. Iran responds to strength. You punch them one and you punch them hard, and they will back off. But what we don't need is Biden falling all over himself to get back in the Iran deal. Him giving $6 billion to get 5 hostages home. Him telling Netanyahu now that he needs a pause or a ceasefire. We don't need him going and sitting there tiptoeing around Iran because he thinks they're going to do something. You don't respond to an enemy and a terrorist with fear. You respond with strength. When you do that, that's when the world pays attention, and that's when Iran stops.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, if I can continue with you. Just today, the U.S. launched another one of its limited airstrikes against targets.
So Sarah Huckabee Sanders just wrapping up.
Linked facility. How far
Trump walking out right now
to hold Iran accountable?
Well, first, Matt, thanks for your question, and I appreciate what you've done over the last month. I know it's been very difficult for the community, and appreciate you guys rallying together in difficult times. I actually served in Iraq back in the day, and we had al-Qaeda in Iraq. You had Shia militias that were funded by Iran.
You tortured people.
Hundreds and hundreds of U.S. troops. And as commander-in-chief, I am not going to put our troops in harm's way unless you're willing to defend them with everything you have. Biden has them out there. They're sitting ducks. He's doing glancing blows. That's just inviting more attacks from the Iranians. I would say you harm a hair on the head of an American service member, and you are going to have hell to pay. We are not just going to sit there and let our service members be sitting ducks, and that's true whether it's Iran or whether it's any country on the world. We have to be strong, and we have to defend the people who defend us.
All right, thank you, Governor.
I usually sing the Lee Greenwood.
For Matthew Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition, please watch.
Jewish students across the country are threatened and under attack. What do you say to Jewish students on college campuses who feel unsafe given the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism? And what do you say to university presidents and college presidents who have not met the moral clarity moment to forcefully condemn Hamas terrorism?
Mr. Ramaswamy, would you like to take that?
Absolutely. I think the scourge of anti-Semitism across this country, including at places like my alma maters and places like Brooklyn Bridge in New York, it's sad to see, but here's what history teaches us. Anti-Semitism is a symptom of a deeper cancer in a country and a society that is lost, and we are lost. Several years ago when I wrote my first book, Woke Inc., I was talking about they were chanting death to America. Death to white people, death to Christians. Nobody was waking up back then. Now it's even bad. Now they're saying death to Israel and worse. So it is wrong, but we have to get to the root cause here. Now, I think it's really important that we do this through leadership, not censorship. Leadership means fill that void with purpose and meaning. Dilute this wokeism and anti-Semitism to irrelevance. These kids, they have no idea what the heck they're even talking about. When they're siding with Hamas over Israel, they are fools. But I also want to caution here, if we go the direction of Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, with whom I respectfully disagree on this issue,
I don't think you respectfully disagree.
Disband. Mark my words. Soon they will say if you question a vaccine and its side effects, you're a bioterrorist. Soon they will say that if you show up at a school board meeting, you're a domestic terrorist. Soon if they say that J6 prisoners should be released, you're an insurrectionist terrorist. So that's where this road ends. We don't quash this with censorship because that creates a worse underbelly. We quell it through leadership by calling it out. These university administrators have lost their way, and we need leadership at the top in the United States of America that restores our founding values and that has no place for this kind of anti-Semitic hate. That's where I stand while respecting our Constitution.
Your time is out.
Sounded awful fashy to me.
Well, let me just say to every single university president in America, federal funding is a privilege, not a right. Number one.
They're public universities, asshole.
To every student who've come to our country on a visa to a college campus, your visa is a privilege, not a right. Number three, any campus that allows for anti-Semitism and hate, to allow students to encourage terrorism, mass murder, and genocide, you should lose your federal funding today, period. To all the students on visas who are encouraging Jewish genocide, I would deport you from those campuses. We have to stand strong with our Jewish Americans. At the end of the day, we should not have our Jewish students in a library being told to hide. On our streets in New York, a Jewish citizen has the right to walk on the streets of America with no fear. They have the right to go to college campuses, go to class, and not fear. We will restore that. I started working on anti-Semitism on college campuses in 2017 because even then there was a rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. We must,
I assume, coming from Trump supporters,
off those campuses.
What few there are on college campuses.
Thank you. Let me
out of our country.
Let me turn to the Governor DeSantis here. What do you think about what he just said?
I was the first presidential candidate to say, if you are here on a student visa as a foreign national, you're making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home. No questions asked. Second, I have friends here in Florida who their kids do not feel safe even going to university campus at all outside of the state of Florida. You have Jewish students fleeing for their lives at Cooper Union. Joe Biden should have the Department of Justice on these college campuses and holding the universities accountable for civil rights violations.
For what?
You should not have money going to these places. I already acted in Florida. We had a group, Students for Justice of Palestine. They said they are common cause with Hamas. They said, we're not just in solidarity, this is what we are. We deactivated them. We're not going to use state tax dollars to fund jihad. No way. And what is Biden doing? Not only is he not helping the Jewish students who are being persecuted, man. He is launching an initiative to combat so-called Islamophobia. No, it's the anti-Semitism that's spiraling out of control. Right. That is what we have to confront. And as president, I can tell you this, we are not going to stand for this on college campuses any longer.
All right, Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Governor Christie, and considering what he just said, you led a state with a sizable Muslim population. Last month, as you know, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy was killed in Illinois by his landlord. His mother was also stabbed more than a dozen times in what has been charged as a hate crime. What do you say to Muslim Americans who are also feeling afraid for their safety right now?
Lester, I'm the only one on the stage who's actually had experience in dealing with this. I was appointed by President Bush to be the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey on September 10th, 2001. And when I took over that job after the September 11th attacks, I had to deal with a situation in our state that was explosive. We're the most ethnically diverse state in this country.
New Jersey?
First, we heard credible reports about Jewish students and synagogues being threatened in our state in the aftermath of 9/11. We made sure that we sent federal agents to those synagogues and we protected them, and the same thing should be being done now. At the very same time, I personally went from mosque to mosque in New Jersey and met with the leaders of those mosques and with the members of the mosques. And I said to them, law enforcement is on your side to protect you, regardless of your religion.
Not the most ethically diverse. Can't be. It had to be California and New York.
Fabulous relationships with Muslim Americans all across the state of New Jersey, and we stopped any hate crimes that were going on either against Jewish Americans in New Jersey or Muslim Americans in New Jersey. It takes leadership, Lester, to know how to do this. You must work with both sides. Both sides need to know it, but let us never have a false moral equivalence between Hamas and Hezbollah and the Jewish people. The Jewish people stand for right and justice, and Hamas and Hezbollah stand for death.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, what do you say to Americans who...
What about the false equivalency between Hamas and Palestinians?
I think, you look at the country, and the country is all out of sorts. I think, look at what these kids are dealing with on college campuses. What makes me so angry is not only do you have the kids barricaded in the library, they've said they were going to shoot up the kosher dining hall. You've got kids' dorm rooms who are being set on fire because they have something related to Israel on their doors. No person should ever feel in danger like this. And this
I'm sorry, Richard. I didn't get it. That was a good one.
If the KKK were doing this, every college president would be up in arms. This is no different. You should treat it exactly the same. Anti-Semitism is just as awful as racism, and we've got to make sure they're protected. And for everybody that's protesting on these college campuses in favor of Hamas, let me remind you something. Hamas said death to Israel and death to America. They hate and would kill you too. And the idea that they're talking about genocide for the Jewish people, that's not the values of America. That's not us. We're better than that. We don't need to celebrate terrorists. We don't need to celebrate genocide. We don't need to celebrate violence towards anybody. We need to go back and soul search in our country and remember what we are about. And we are about taking care of people, not going and making them live in fear because some other terrorist activity says they want to destroy them.
Ambassador, thank you. Kristen.
Lester, thank you.
So much wrong with that.
For the entire field, so you will all get a chance to respond. But Senator Scott, I'd like to start with you. The United States has given Ukraine financial and military support since the war began more than 600 days ago. President Zelensky told me on Sunday, if Russia isn't stopped now, quote, the price will be high.
By the way, I have Puppy Bus. Puppy Bus for the end of the show. You all deserve it.
Sons and daughters to defend NATO countries. Senator Scott, where do you stand on more funding for Ukraine?
I certainly have been very supportive of Ukraine. I believe that ultimately we should make sure that the President of the United States states what is America's national vital interest in Ukraine. It is actually in degrading the Russian military. We've been very effective using our resources and our weaponry and the incredibly high price of Ukrainian blood to achieve that objective. Every day we get closer to the degradation of the Russian military, and that's good news. But the American people are frustrated that they do not have a president who reminds us and tells us, where's the accountability? Where are those dollars? How are those dollars being spent? We need those answers for us to continue to see the support for Ukraine. And at the same time, I would say that a package that's been offered by the president for Ukraine.
I got a package for you.
That's the wrong approach. We need to focus specifically on providing Israel with the $14 billion that they need so that we show the world that we are 100% undeniably standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. And then as we turn away from that direct support for Israel, we should go to our southern border and close our southern border with the resources necessary. I believe that we have sleeper terrorist cells in America. Thousands of people have come from Yemen, Iran, Syria, and Iraq. If we are going to deal with the national security emergency at our border, we have to do it now.
Senator Scott, thank you. But just to be very clear, if you were president, if you were in the Oval Office today, would you sign off on more military funding for Ukraine, or would you discontinue it?
Bottom line is we have to first have the level of accountability that allows the American people to understand where the resources have gone. Number one. Number two, after we have that responsibility taken care of and accountability, then we have an opportunity to look at the overall strategy that helps us degrade the Russian military while we use our resources, and frankly, keeping our NATO partners safe from the Russian military is absolutely essential. As you understand, Article 5 would require to support and to defend NATO, our troops on the ground. The fastest way for us to eliminate that possibility is for us to destroy, to the extent possible, the Russian military. By doing so, we actually achieve the objective of keeping our military home. And that's good news.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funding?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. And I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 hours.
Neither is Israel.
It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic. It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is not democratic. More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream.
He's a Nazi?
The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk. These are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you. Those are the hard facts. And sort of,
I saw some of them speak Russian the other day and say that they don't support Russia.
The likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one time at least condemn.
Thank you. That's time.
At least to condemn their banning of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you.
Out of both sides
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. We asked the questions. Ambassador.
He's going hard after Nikki Haley.
On more funding for Ukraine.
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see that.
No, they're salivating at the thought of Trump becoming president.
First of all, Mr. Ramaswamy,
because of
you
these
had
foolish
your
policies.
time to talk. The ambassador has the floor. Ambassador,
Thank you. The first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine. We all know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin. And here is a freedom-loving, pro-American country that is fighting for its survival and its democracy. No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over. But let's also remember this. When you left Afghanistan in shambles and left them with a ton of weapons and money, it's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine, don't think for a second, now everybody wants to move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. After 9/11, we needed a lot of friends. Now is the time to get partnerships. This unholy alliance between Russia, Ukraine, and China is real. There is a reason the Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians. It's because they know that China is coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins.
Ambassador,
we have to see the combination of the three.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor Christie, what is your take? And And how long should Americans be expected to help fund the war in Ukraine?
Kirsten, let's remember the last time that we turned our back on a shooting war in Europe. It bought us just a couple of years. And then 500,000 Americans were killed in Europe to defeat Hitler. This is not a choice. This is the price we pay for being the leaders of the free world. And the fact is, this alliance is not just with Russia and China. Governor Haley knows this. Iran is in the middle of this as well, and so is North Korea. And they are all working to support Russia right now. And the reason they're doing it is because dictators work together. People who believe in democracy work together. We must stand with all of those that are standing up for democracy and freedom in this world. And by the way, let's remind everybody of this.
Can you start with your fucking party?
This country made a promise to Ukraine. We said if you return nuclear missiles that were part of the old Soviet Union to Russia and they invade you, we will protect you. An American promise that's 31 years old is no different than an American promise that's made tonight on this stage. We need to stand by it. And those of us who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And
I'd like to respond.
And the absolute...
I bet you would, Vivek.
Giving in to dictators, which is being suggested on this stage, just shows the immaturity of the approach.
Governor Christie, thank you. Governor DeSantis, I'd like you to weigh in on this idea. Are you concerned that this could become a wider war if Putin is not stopped now?
Well, any suggestion by Zelensky or anyone else that we're going to eventually have U.S. troops there, I can tell the American people when I'm president that will not happen. We are not going to send your sons and daughters to Ukraine. I am going to send troops to our southern border. If you look at the threats that we face, terrorists have come in through our southern border. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to have the military, and I'm going to deport the people who've come, particularly under Biden, who've come from the Middle East, come from all these places. Now, Biden wants $105 billion. 60, most of that's Ukraine, including some of it going to pay pensions for bureaucrats and salaries. That is a totally ridiculous use of American tax dollars. He says he has money for border to try to do, and the media repeat that. When you look at it, what most of the money is money to process more illegal aliens into this country.
Yeah, that's actually the problem.
That's making the problem worse. And what does he do for the Indo-Pacific? A pittance. That is the top threat that we face. We need to bring this war to an end. We need the Europeans to step up and do their fair share. And we need to get serious about the top threat that this country faces, which is the Chinese Communist Party.
So if I may respond to the Ukraine question.
In fact, we are going to go from the hot wars in Ukraine and Gaza and Israel to what many people are calling the new Cold War with China. And I remind the audience that it's important for our visitors at home to be able to hear you, and especially for the people in Beijing to hear you. Many Republicans believe that the Chinese Communist Party and General Secretary Xi is an existential threat to the United States. The flashpoint is Taiwan. For decades and decades, the American military, but primarily the United States Navy, has deterred an attack from China to the island state of Taiwan. But Ronald Reagan's Navy of 600 ships is gone. Now, the question to you is, and I'll start with you, Ambassador Haley, because you were in President Trump's cabinet. His goal was a 355-ship Navy. That's what he pushed for. He got to 300. It's now at 291. Is that big enough to deter and, if necessary, defeat an invasion of Taiwan?
China has the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. China has built up their military. It's not just land, air, and sea. They're doing cyber. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing space. America needs to modernize our military. We need to do everything we can. The first thing is you go and you make sure you have the backs of Ukraine. That's why the Taiwanese want us to support Ukraine, because they know that sends the biggest message to China. The second thing is we go to China and we start being tough on them. No more sales of our American soil to China, and let's take back what they've already stolen. Then you go and you to the universities. No more having millions of dollars go to our universities. Then we will go and end all formal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans from fentanyl, something Ron is yet to say that he's
Wait, what?
And then we modernize.
Do you know what would happen if you stopped all trade relations with China?
When we modernize it with the focus of cyber.
That'd be the dumbest move ever.
When we make sure that we have the backs of our friends, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Ukraine, and we should be arming Taiwan. Make sure they have the equipment they need. Make sure they have the training they need now. There's nothing China fears more than knowing that America will have Taiwan's back. Let's make sure that we show it by making sure they have the equipment they need.
Governor DeSantis, my question is specifically about the Navy. It's at 291. It's going to go down perhaps as low as 280. Is it enough? And what would you build if you were going to build more?
Not enough. We have to have the ability to back up a strategy of denial of President Xi's ambitions. And if China is able to be the world's leading superpower, that will affect you and your family in ways that are going to be very bad. They will export authoritarianism all around the world as the cost of doing business. They will impose things like social credit scores and internet monitoring. So this is, to this generation, what the Soviet Union was to the post-World War II generation. I've already released a plan. We're going to get to 355 ships at the end of the first term, 385 ships at the end of the second term, but we're going to have a path to 600 ships over the next 20 years. I think the future of freedom is going to be determined in the Indo-Pacific. We have a strategy not just military, but decoupling from the economy and fighting them here at home with their cultural. You know, Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South Carolina, gave them land near a military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their number one way to do economic.
Haley's been rising in the polls. That's why she's getting attacked tonight.
Land in this state, and we kicked out on our universities, and we kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our universities. We've recognized the threat, and we've acted swiftly and decisively.
Senator Scott, you've been in the Congress since 2011. Defense spending has fallen over that entire period of time. Where are we going to get the money, and what would you build, and what kind of ships to deter China from attacking?
Defense spending has fallen?
With the question number one, we do not have currently a defense industrial bank to allow us to have the kind of production that we need in order to keep America safe. Frankly, if we are not prepared to fight and engage in 3 continents at the same time, think about where we are today. In the Middle East, we are in the midst of trying to back our strongest ally. In Eastern Europe, we've seen our resources and our weaponry help degrade the Russian military. The Indo-Pacific, we have real challenges. The long-term threat is China.
All their foreign policy is extremely frightening.
For us to have the military to fight 3 different continents at the exact same time, we are going to have to invest heavily in our military, but we're also going to have to invest heavily in an industrial base so that we can hit our objectives from a military perspective, not only with our ships, but also with our planes. We are so old as a military that in order for us to recalibrate, we're going to have to invest. One of the things I do in my Made in America strategy is we create more than 4 million new jobs by having high-tech manufacturing come back to America, decoupling from China, so that we focus our attention on creating that industrial revolution that will be necessary for us to achieve the goal of having a military that is ready to be lethal and come home safe.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Ramaswamy, I'm looking for specifics. What would you build? Where would you build it? When would they be in the water? How big would the fleet get?
First answer is end the toxic divest to invest program. For people who don't know about that, we're decommissioning ships in the South China Sea. The foundation of war is economics. Rebuild our defense industrial base at home. But here's the dirty little secret. Our actual defense industrial base depends on China for the supply chain, for the F-35 jets, for the ships that we're building. Think about this. Why are we stockpiling that if it isn't to actually be strong against our enemy, China? We depend on them for that. Just like we depend on them for pharmaceuticals. Just like
China is actually our ally.
So here's why we can't get tough with China. It's because we depend on them for our modern way of life. And we have to declare economic...
So that's why we have these trade agreements with them.
That's the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson, at the age of 33, would have signed. And today, if he were alive, that's the Declaration of Independence that I will sign as the next president.
If he was alive, he'd punch you in the fucking face.
Correct about acknowledging Nikki Haley's tough talk when she was ambassador to the UN, calling China our great friend, bringing the CCP to South Carolina. What he left out, though, Ron, and be honest about it, there was a lobbying-based exemption in that bill that allowed Chinese nationals to buy land within a 20-mile radius of a military base lobbied for by one of your donors. So I think we have to call a spade a spade. We need politicians
torching everybody
of the forces that increase our dependence on China. My message to Xi Jinping is this. You are done buying land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until you play by the same set of rules.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
you're kicked out of the WTO, and you actually have to have accountability for the COVID-19 pandemic financially, which unleashed hell on the world. We have to hold them accountable.
Do you have a number and a plan?
I think that we need to increase our naval capacity by at least 20% over the course of the next several years and be able to meet our AUKUS agreement standards. Right now, we are at risk of not even being able to meet our AUKUS standards with Australia and the UK. So what we need to do is have a plan that reverses the trajectory of the divest to invest program
I'd like to
by
respond.
20% over the next 3 years.
Governor Christie?
You know, my first observation, Hugh, is that nobody answers your question. And my second observation,
he's right.
In the middle think they're the enemy. I know China is the enemy, and that's what we should be focused on. So let's be really clear. The nuclear submarines in this United States Navy.
Again, China is our ally.
To Chinese aggression, and that is the first place I would go to increase American naval power. Our nuclear submarines are able to move stealthily, quietly, and effectively. And if we are going to deter China from invading Taiwan, the only way we're going to do it is to make sure that they don't know whether how many nuclear submarines from the United States of America are in the South China Sea and in that area and ready to strike on them if they decide to move on Taiwan. And so we, as our first priority, need to go directly to our nuclear sub program, Hugh, and we need to increase it drastically. That would be priority number one. Ships would come next, but to me, the ships are secondary choice here. The submarines are the single most important thing that we could be deterring, that we could be using to deter China. But the other thing we could do to deter China is to let them know that the blood money they're spending for Russia in Ukraine right now will not be effective, that we send Putin home with his tail between his legs and make them understand that the same fate waits for them if they decide to move towards Taiwan with a more aggressive nuclear sub-program. We'll be able to make that threat real.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to take a brief pause now, and we'll be back to the Republican presidential primary debate. Please stay tuned.
Ooh. All right, what everybody's been waiting for.
Where these stairs are not obvious enough, Biden could never get off.
Biden could never get off.
Think of it. Here's a guy can't find.
Come on, man.
Or figure out a way to get off a stage with about 5 sets of stairs. I got one here, I got one there, I have one there, I have one here. And you could even jump off the front if you have to. He can't figure it out. So he can't find out how to get off the stage. And he would also, by the way, half of the times he falls. And
I thought he was looking incredibly bronze tonight as well. What's he? There's Morrissey. Morrissey is behind him.
So he can't get off the stage. He can't put 2 sentences together. And he's in charge of our nuclear talks. This is the closest we've ever been to World War III. This is the closest. And I hope that one's wrong. And that's not a prediction because I would never make that.
I'm face blind. I don't know. It might actually be Morrissey.
But we have never been closer to World War III. And only
that's probably Jelly Roll right behind him.
Competent people talking on our behalf. You know, when you deal with China.
Yeah, I usually agree with Trump when we're making fun of Biden.
Russia, Putin. You deal with all these people. The press hates when I say they're smart. He said they were smart. Well, what am I supposed to say?
I learned this. I tried to do the bronzer in high school. You can't use it on your hands. You can't put it on your ears. It looks weird.
And they want me to say, he's not an intelligent man.
I didn't know this. My hands look like I stuck them in 2 pumpkins. And it's all streaky and shit.
They do that. They're fake. They're fake people. And they're hurting our country very badly.
Hey, Roseanne thought he was tasty.
I watched a certain anchor on ABC who truly doesn't have it, how they pick this guy as an anchor. And he was almost crying.
David Muir?
In the New York Times book, because it has us up by 10, 11 points. And beating Biden everywhere with women, with everything. Women, I'm finally.
He looks like tobacco, but he is very against smoking.
Women, because women want security, right? Women want security. Women. I'm winning with young people. I thought I'd do well with young people. Look at the people here. They're all young people.
I know Morrissey canceled some concerts.
They're all young and beautiful. They're young people. Look at that. So, we're doing well.
I'm sure the average age of that crowd is like 50, 55.
It means we're going to have strong borders, great education. You're going to be able to buy a house. We're going to have interest rates come down. We're going to have a great military. We're going to have safety and security. It means everything. It means we're going to have a country, because you're not going to have a country left. If we don't win this election, you're not going to have a country left. I'm telling you, this country's going to hell. It's going to hell. And you know it, and we know it. And I hate to say it, because it's a very negative thought, I would say. Look at the front row Joes. Will you stand up? These people, they follow me all over the place. They're the greatest.
He's very shiny.
They love our country. How many now? Tell me. 32, that's nothing compared to 65.
32, 65.
98.
33 and 2/3% chance.
And they must be doing very well, because they travel all over the place. You guys, you got to be making a lot of money, right? Huh? Well, we love you too, and everybody.
Checking in with Trump. Let's go back to the GOP presidential primary debate.
And welcome back to tonight's NBC News.
Shut up, Lester.
Presidential debate. Once again, here's Hugh Hewitt.
Thank you, Lester. We're going to stay on China, and we're going to talk specifically about TikTok. Last week, Congressman Mike Gallagher, who is chairman of the House Bipartisan Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, published a long essay on TikTok following the flooding of pro-Hamas propaganda onto TikTok accounts across the United States. Chairman Gallagher called it shocking. He called the app predatory, controlled by America's preeminent adversary, one used to push propaganda and divide America. It's spyware, he said, a means of surveillance. Governor Christie, do you agree with Chairman Gallagher? And if so, would you ban or force the sale of TikTok?
I agree 100% with Chairman Gallagher, and let me say this. TikTok is not only spyware, it is polluting the minds of American young people all throughout this country, and they're doing it intentionally.
That's correct, but so is Facebook. So is Twitter.
With all of this
anti-Semitic, Instagram,
horrible stuff that their algorithms were pushing out at a gargantuan rate. This is China trying to further divide the United States of America. And this is one of the big failings among...
I hate to tell you, but they took down one of my videos about Hamas.
I heard him do it many times. But when it came down to it, he did not ban them when he could have and should have. And now since then, we've had an additional nearly 6 years of this type of poison being put out throughout the United States, even putting aside the spying, which we know is going on, and the theft of American personal data and information. So in my first week as president, we would ban TikTok. They want to go ahead and sell it? Let them go ahead and sell it. But I'll tell you another reason we would do it. Facebook's not in China. X is not in China. They're not permitting a free flow of information to the Chinese people from our social media companies, yet we just open the door and let them...
I'm sure China could buy all the data from Facebook if they wanted to.
And I would do it week one.
Thank you, Governor. I want to go to Governor DeSantis. Would you ban or force the sale of TikTok, regardless of whether or not China allowed American apps to operate in China?
It apparently may very well be Morrissey.
Threat we face. They've been very effective at infiltrating different parts of our society. So my policy on China and the Chinese Communist Party is very simple. We win, they lose. And in order to do that, it's not just military, it's economic, and it's cultural. And as the dad of a 6'5" and a 3-year-old, I'm concerned about the data that they're getting from our young people and what they're doing to pollute the minds of our young people.
Sir, all they're doing is dancing to fucking songs. Have you been on TikTok?
hard to even keep it out. China's obviously the most extreme, but this is happening with other things. So we are going to do that, and we are going to make sure to protect the American people. It's
all I ever see is the I don't speak English.
Yes, military deterrence. Yes, economic decoupling, but also their role in our culture. If we ignore that, we're not going to be able to win the fight.
Thank you, Governor. Ambassador Haley, speak to the parents out there. There are probably TikTok apps on half the phones in this auditorium.
No, I'm going to speak to the fact that 2 people hit me and you didn't let me respond. So let's first talk about the fact that they want to talk about the Chinese land from 10 years ago. Yes, I brought a fiberglass company 10 years ago to South Carolina. But Ron, you are the chair of your economic development agency that as of last week said Florida is the ideal place for Chinese businesses. Not only that, you have a company that is manufacturer of Chinese military planes. You have it. They are expanding 2 training sites at 2 of your airports now, one which is 12 miles away from a naval base. Then you have another company that's expanding, and they were just invaded by the Department of Homeland Security. So mine was 10 years ago.
You gave
Yours
them
was
stuff.
6
I
months
didn't
ago.
give them anything.
What's your story?
And I abolished that agency that she's...
What was that stance Ron was doing?
We abolished it, and of course, we banned
He
China from buying
scrubbed the
land.
website
Not
last
exactly
week.
a
Go
great
check.
recruiting pitch if you're banning them from purchasing land.
scrubbed the website
So we've
last
stood up
week.
and
Thank
we've
you,
done the
Ambassador
right thing
Haley.
in Florida.
Mr. Ramaswamy, we've talked about this. You campaign on TikTok. How do you get TikTok banned if you use it?
Well, I want to laugh at why Nikki Haley didn't answer your question, which is about looking at families in the eye. In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my
before
daughter
preaching
out
to
of your
anybody else,
voice.
your adult daughter. The next generation of Americans are using it. And that's actually the point. You have her supporters propping her up. That's fine. Here's the truth.
You're just
the easy
scum.
answer is actually to say that we're just going to ban one app. We got to go further. We have to ban any U.S. company actually transferring U.S. data to the Chinese. Here's a story most people don't know. Airbnb hands over U.S. user data to the CCP. Now, that's a U.S.-owned company. So this is the problem when you have Republicans that temporarily go the way the winds blow, and now it's popular to talk tough on China. When she was UN ambassador, called them literally, her words, not mine, our great friend. You can't be fair weather fans of the right policy. Get to the root cause. Even U.S. companies in Silicon Valley are regularly doing it. Cut the virtue signaling. The fact of the matter is Democrats are on TikTok today. The only person, one of the few people who is putting up content the way the actual algorithms work, speaking for pro-Israel views or others, is
Ambassador
me. And I predict
Haley,
more Republicans will join it. But stop U.S. companies from turning over data to Chinese companies.
Can we have a Bill of Rights where we control our own data?
Personal attacks, but you do.
Thank you very much. You know, when he talks about me praising China, he doesn't know the fact that the reason China was praised was because I negotiated with China and Russia the largest set of sanctions against North Korea in a generation. That is literally the reason North Korea stopped testing ballistic missiles. So I said China did good on their part.
They haven't.
Our
You
great
could
friend
never
is
do-
what you said, Nikki. Those are your words, not mine. And so just own up to it.
You would never
you can
have been
change
able
your
to
mind.
get
That's
that
allowed.
negotiation
But don't
done.
lie to the people about
I
what
have
you've
fought
said or what you've
against
done in
China
South Carolina.
My
You have brought
entire
them to South
career
Carolina.
at the
Ron is
United
right about
Nations.
that.
Every day I fought China, and I did it
Look at the
by
actual
making sure
hard
no
facts.
one
You
could
brought them
get
to this
any
country.
agency heads in UN. I did it by making sure that we called them out on human rights. I did it by making sure that we held them accountable on everything that they did. That's the reason we got out of the Human Rights Council. That's the reason we called them out. And there's not been a day I haven't
Nikki,
stopped.
Senator Scott, it is your turn.
Policy
Mr.
experience with the millions you
Ramaswamy.
made afterwards.
Everybody else is hanging on to the rules here, Mr. Ramaswamy. Senator Scott.
Thank you. We should. I appreciate y'all clapping for me already. This is wonderful answer. Love this. Without any question. What we should do is ban TikTok, period. Now, we saw under former President Trump, he tried to ban TikTok twice, but was struck down by our federal courts. If you cannot ban TikTok, you should eliminate the Chinese presence on the app, period. We also should.
How about we own our data?
We give parents the opportunity to give their kids permission under 14 to be on those apps. I think it's incredibly important for us as Americans to take back control of the information, especially of our kids. Where does it go? We should know that. One of the ways that we get to know that is by having a parental consent. But if we can eliminate TikTok, that is a first step. But it's not just TikTok. China continues to spy on our kids, but they're also buying our farmlands. We talked about that several times there. We have to make sure that we use the tools that are in our toolkit to stop China from buying farmland near our bases. The third thing we have to do is make sure that they stop stealing our intellectual property. They're literally stealing our IP to compete against us. My administration, we stopped that day one, and we start making sure that we create six-figure income for jobs made in America through my strategy.
Kristen.
Hugh, thank you so much. We're now going to talk about Venezuela, where millions have fled political and economic turmoil. Many Venezuelan immigrants are settling.
Wasn't expecting that one.
In Florida. Former President Trump and President Biden have taken different approaches to Nicolas.
Yeah, I was expecting a more hostile crowd, a more pro-Trump crowd, but Trump's just down the road. So everybody that is pro-Trump could be at the Trump rally.
Sanctions to encourage electoral reforms. Governor DeSantis, do you see the political situation in Venezuela as a threat to the United States, and what would your approach be?
We should never rely on Venezuela for oil like Biden has had to go beg. I'm going to unleash all of America's energy potential. On day one, I'm taking all the Biden regulations, the Green New Deal, ripping it up and throwing it in the trash can where it belongs. We're going to lower your gas prices.
The Green New Deal that's not in effect anywhere.
But we're also going to be more energy independent and secure. We'll choose Midland over Moscow. We'll choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we'll choose Bakken over Beijing. That is good for America's national security. Biden's Green New Deal, that's good for Venezuela, it's good for Russia, it's good for Iran, and it's good for China. So I would turn the screws on the Venezuelan regime. I think it's a corrupt, dictatorial regime, and we should never go hat in hand begging for oil from them.
Just to be clear, would you reimpose the sanctions?
Yes, absolutely.
Ambassador Haley, what would your approach be?
You know, I stood on the Simon Boulevard Bridge and watched thousands of Venezuelans cross for hours in the hot sun, holding their babies to get the one meal they might get that day, going from Venezuela to Colombia. They were fleeing socialism and begging for freedom.
No, they were fleeing U.S. foreign policy in South America.
Sanction Maduro. We shouldn't be getting dirty oil, and Biden just gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary priority status, which is just going to have more of them come. But on the energy side, it cracks me up that Ron continues to do this. He has opposed fracking. He's opposed drilling. Last time he said it wasn't true, and everybody found out that it was true. He opposed it before Florida voters even voted on it. He was praised by the Sierra Club, and you're trying to make up for it and act like you weren't a liberal when it comes to the environment. You were. You always have been. Just own it if that's the case, but don't keep saying you're something that you're not.
Let me respond to that. Our whole energy plan, you can't get the shale without fracking. We are absolutely going to frack, but I disagree with Nikki Haley. I don't think it's a good idea to drill in the Florida Everglades, and I know most Floridians agree with me.
You banned fracking.
Thank you very much. Lester?
All right, well, thank you. Let's turn to one of the biggest issues for voters. That, of course, is...
Remember that time I called into C-SPAN, they asked me about fracking?
An Iowa voter recently...
I was like, I just want health care.
How am I going to make sure my pantry's stocked without breaking the bank? You've all said the best way to deal with rising prices is to cut government spending. But that would take time to play out, and Americans are struggling right now. Senator Scott, I'll start with you. What would you do the moment you take office to help Americans manage the cost of living? So we're talking about short term here.
My mother was a single mother who raised me and my brother in a very challenging economic situation. The first thing I can tell you is that when your gas prices are 40% higher right now than they were just a little over 2 years ago, that's not a problem for my mama. That was a crisis. The first thing I would do as President of the United States is I would sign the XL Keystone Pipeline and start seeing resources flow. Second thing I would do is make sure that there's certainty and predictability so that those folks who have the leases in our country would have the certainty and predictability to go ahead and become energy independent. We should focus not just on being energy independent, we should focus on being energy dominant. America is the home to more energy resources than any other country on the planet. We can reduce the price of energy, we can reduce the price of food and the price of electricity if we focus on my build here, don't borrow from China plan that is embedded. The Made in America strategy creates 10 million new jobs in 3 different areas. One is innovation. Second is the high-tech manufacturing. And the third is the energy economy. We have an opportunity as Americans to actually export the surplus energy that we create in our nation and disconnect from China and from murderous dictators and tyrants around the world.
Your time is up, but let me just follow up. The idea of pumping gas, of turning on pipelines, that doesn't make gas cheaper that day. I'm talking about you become president. What can you do specifically to help people feel better about their situation or be better with their situation?
Well, actually, it does, to be honest with you. The way that the economy works is it works on the ability to anticipate excess supply versus the demand. When that happens, confidence drives.
How about futures markets?
Because we know there's going to be a greater surplus. When you allow for those who have leases to actually start drilling, to start using those leases for more energy excavation, you put our economy in the strongest position. And as a result of that, prices start going down. That is the kind of economy that, as President of the United States, I would lead this nation to making sure that we first use the resources in our own country and not going outside of our country in order to achieve our objective. You know, Proverbs 22:7 reminds us that the borrower is slave to the lender. We have become an indentured servant too often to countries like China. By having an energy economy, we start allowing this nation to once again return.
Senator, thank you. Let me ask the same question to Governor DeSantis. Can you give us some, you ticked off a number of things a moment ago, but some specific examples of ways that would put people on a better economic footing right away?
So I started off working minimum wage jobs. I did $6 an hour as an electrician's assistant. I worked all kinds of things to be able to get through school. And I did that because I believed in America.
Didn't you go to Ivy League?
Most out of your God-given ability, you can get ahead. And what's happening now, many of you are working hard and you're falling further and further behind. I've met people in Iowa, New Hampshire, and all across the country who've talked about all the burdens that they're facing with the rising prices. And I've heard from multiple people the same story. When they go grocery shopping, what they now do is they...
I don't think you get into Harvard and Yale by working minimum wage jobs.
Because it rings up so much faster and so much higher at the cash register that they can't afford the full cart of groceries anymore. We have to restore the American dream in this country. What can you do on day one? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all the executive orders, the regulations, everything involving Bidenomics. I'm going to rip it up, and I'm going to throw it in the trash can on day one where it belongs. That is going to give the economy breathing room, and I'm also going to rein in the Federal Reserve. They have helped create, with their reckless monetary policy.
It was $4.25 when I first started working.
Pandemic. They botched it. Congress botched it.
Would have been 1999. It went up to like $5.35 shortly after.
Stable prices. They are not an economic central planner for the American people.
Governor, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, weigh in on this. Ways that you can improve people's financial condition in the short term.
Right, and as a CEO, the economic question is core to my vision and policy prescription for this country. Increase the supply of everything. It's the law of supplies and demand. Increase the supply of energy. That brings down the cost of energy, grows the economy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Increase the supply of labor in this country. Stop using our taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home instead of to go to work. Increase the supply of housing. People don't talk about this one in the Republican Party. The land use restrictions are constricting the supply of housing. That's making housing more expensive for ordinary Americans across this country. So that's the true answer. And I think it takes a CEO in the White House who actually understands this to get this done. Because Americans at home, they know the Bidenomics is a lie. Prices are going up. Interest rates and mortgages to buy your home are going up. But wages have remained flat. That's the hard diagnosis for our economy. And this is about more than just our economy. I say this as a member of my generation. I'm 38 years old. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. The reason my generation has lost our sense of national pride, in part, is because people in my generation feel like the American dream isn't available to them. And part of the reason why is we burdened them with 4-year college degrees that did not serve their head start on the American dream.
Yeah, but gas was like 99 cents when I started driving.
Making more money.
When I was making $4.25.
In our identity, and it will take a CEO in the White House with zero-based budgeting, by the way, to take on the federal debt to get this job done.
Let me turn to Governor Christie on that.
Well, look, Lester, part of the entire premise of the question, and I agree with Tim on this, is absolutely energy is the key to this because it drives every one of those other prices. You know, now food gets to your grocery store, it gets trucked. And those truckers have to pay for fuel, for the higher fuel prices. And when you go ahead and you tell people, we are going to unleash every bit of American energy, every bit of its potential, what happens in the futures markets? The prices go down because those people who are believing that the Biden program will continue are the ones who are bidding this up. And let me tell you the other place that's bidding it up, in the Middle East. And so if you don't believe that making sure that Israel and that Israel situation that's going on right now isn't resolved and resolved quickly as President of the United States and bring stability back, that will also not permit countries like Saudi Arabia and others to be able to jack their prices as well in what they say is in response to a crisis, when it's really what it's in response to is putting more money in their pockets. When they have an American president who knows that Israel must be defended not with humanitarian pauses and not with suggestions for ceasefire, but with letting them know we will supply them with everything they need, that will also bring stability to the market. Energy is the key to bringing this down. It's what every American family needs when they turn on their lights, fill up their car, and go to the grocery store. And we need to do that first and foremost. That's the short-term answer.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me come at this from a slightly different direction. Americans in rural communities are being especially squeezed by inflation right now. An Iowa State University study found that last year inflation cost rural households about an extra $5,000. How would you specifically help rural Americans who are suffering right now, Ambassador?
Well, I'm a product of rural America. I grew up in rural South Carolina. And I can tell you what we're seeing now in America is the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We have to go and start beefing up the middle.
There's the rich woman.
What I would do is I will eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. We'll cut taxes on the middle class. But we have to stop this spending binge that's happening by Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I will make sure, one, we claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that exist, one out of every $7. We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't go back to pre-COVID levels. That will cut trillions and allow us to be safe. We also need to be not energy independent, energy dominant. We are blessed with resources, let's do it. But the reason no one should give you a number, Hugh, on the amount of ships in the Navy is because in a few years, our interest expense is going to be more than our defense budget. So no one can give you that number realistically without first tackling what's happening with the financial situation. It would be a false number to give you that. We have got to understand this is a crisis. It is a national security concern. If we don't deal with what's going to happen with that interest expense in a few years, we're going to look like Japan. And we can't let that happen. The strong dollar matters.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Christian.
Americans could see their Social Security benefits drastically cut in the next decade because the program is running out of money.
It's not.
President Trump has said, quote, under no circumstances should Republicans cut entitlements. Governor Christie, first to you. You have proposed raising the retirement.
Lift the cap.
What would that age be specifically, and would you consider making any other reforms to Social Security?
Sure, and we have to deal with this problem. Now, look, if we raise the retirement age a few years for folks that are in their 30s and 40s, I have...
Oh, yeah, Fudgy. I've thought about getting a bike.
If he can't adjust to a few-year increase in Social Security retirement age over the next 40 years, I got bigger problems with him than his Social Security payments. And
just lift the cap.
We need to be realistic about this. There are only three things that go into determining whether Social Security can be solvent or not: retirement age, eligibility for the program in general, and taxes. That's it. We are already overtaxed in this country, and we should not raise those taxes. But on eligibility also, I don't know if out there tonight, and if you're watching, Warren, I don't know if Warren Buffett is collecting Social Security, but if he is, shame on you. You shouldn't be taking the money. There are a lot of programs in this country that we all pay for that we don't get.
Just lift the cap so he's paying more into it.
Stamps is one of them. I've never, fortunately in my life, ever had me or my family on food stamps, but I'm glad it's there so that no one in this country goes to bed hungry at night if they have availability to that program. But I don't get a direct benefit. The fact is, on Social Security, remember why it was established. It was established as a safety net program to make sure that no one would grow old in this country in poverty. That's what we got to get back to. Rich people should not be collecting Social Security.
Governor, can you give
That's not the issue.
970, what would the age be?
No, look, that's going to be a part of a negotiation with Congress, Kirsten, and hell, I'm not going to start negotiating until I get there.
All right, Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in on this because you said in June that you would be open to raising the retirement age. Have you determined what that age would be specifically, and what other reforms are you looking at?
So first of all, any candidate that tells you that they're not going to take on entitlements is not being serious. Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare will go bankrupt in 8. Right now, you have Ron and Trump joining Biden and Pelosi saying they're not going to change or do any sort of entitlement reform. What we need to do is keep our promises. Those that have been promised should keep it. But
fuck the millennials.
You go and you say, we're going to change the rules. You change the retirement age for them. Instead of cost of living increases, we should go to increases based on inflation. We should limit benefits on the wealthy. Bernie Marcus can tell you he hates getting that check. Limit the benefits on the wealthy and then expand Medicare Advantage plans. Seniors love that. And let's make sure we do that.
That is a scam. Anybody listening to this, Medicare Advantage is a scam. It is not even Medicare.
Specific age? Have you determined the age?
Again, you have to work with Chris. What I can tell you is it's going to be those in their 20s just coming into the system, and it should reflect more of life expectancy. It doesn't do that now.
Life expectancy has gone down in this country thanks to the opioid crisis and COVID.
Entitlements and Social Security. What, if any, reforms are you looking at?
So this is really important right now. We're working within the last window I believe we will have to actually fix this problem while still leaving Social Security and Medicare benefits for current seniors intact. I'll tell you how. The other candidates assume, like Nikki, that it can't be done. And on her math, she's right about it. But her math assumes $7 trillion of our $33 trillion national debt going to fight wars like in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Minus that, our national debt would be $26 trillion right now. Then you go to zero.
So 10 years ago.
As a CEO, it's how I've run businesses. It's how many CEOs run businesses. Don't use last year's budget as the baseline. Start with zero as
Tempest, good evening.
Ask what's actually necessary. 75% headcount reduction. Yes, that is severe. In the number of federal employees in the Washington, D.C. bureaucracy. Shut down redundant agencies that should not exist. Deliver economic growth as a positive tailwind. I think we can get to 3, 4, maybe even 5% GDP growth if we really take the regulatory shackles off of our economy. And against that backdrop, I believe this is our last best window to be able to take care of our national debt problem through those severe measures, including sacrificing the foreign wars that many bloodthirsty
party shed
both parties have a hunger for. That's the one secret for how we're going to be able to do this, and that requires discipline. So we can't have the first conversation we were having, sending foreign aid willy-nilly to countries.
Spider Biggle.
National debt per capita is less than ours.
Thank you,
But if we
Mr.
do this
Ramaswamy.
correctly, I think this is our last window, and it'll take a CEO from the next generation to do it.
It's been a bitch fight, guys. It's been entertaining.
To keep Social Security sustainable.
The bottom line is a simple one. We have to grow our economy and cut our spending. Let me just say to my mama and to every other mama or grandfather receiving Social Security.
Fuck your mama. Fuck your daddy.
Protect your Social Security. The fact is that we're spending today about $1.1 trillion on Social Security, about $750 billion on Medicare, about $300 billion on Medicaid, about $400 billion on veterans benefits, $1.7 trillion on annual appropriations. If we're going to actually tame this tiger, the way you do it is not by picking on seniors who have paid into a program that deserve their money coming back out to them. The way you deal with it is, number one, you have to grow your economy. My plan, Made in America, creates 10 million new jobs, grows our economy at 5%. By doing so, you add trillions of dollars of economic activity.
No. Do not do the
You have to cut taxes. When we cut taxes in
Autoerotic asphyxiation.
Jobs Act, everybody said, well,
It's too much sexual anarchy.
go down. Well, in 2018, after we wrote it in 2017,
You
what
live
happened?
in sexual
Revenue
anarchy?
went up by 3%, and the next year it went up by another 3%. So what we know is that the Laffer curve still works. That the lower the tax, the higher the revenue. And finally, if
That's
we're
not
going to
true.
deal with it, we have to take our annual appropriations back to pre-2020, pre-COVID levels of spending, which would save us about $500 billion in the next budget window. By doing
Senator,
that, we deal with
thank
Social
you.
Security and our mandatory spending.
Thank you, Senator. Very quickly, would you raise the retirement age? Would you be open to raising the retirement age, or do you rule that out?
All you have to do is go to a farm in Iowa and watch the hard work and the dedication.
Yes or
you and
no,
I
though,
having
Senator?
a conversation.
Yes or
the
no,
answer
though?
is no. But listen to this though, before you go on. Thank you. The fact of the matter is that the more physical your labor, a year or 2 or 3 more is actually challenging to the physical body. You and I might have a different perspective, but for those farmers, they're working night and day.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. Governor DeSantis, finally to you, would you be open to raising the retirement age, and how would you keep Social Security sustainable?
Well, look, as governor of Florida, I know a few people on Social Security, and I know it's important. My grandmother lived till 91, and Social Security was her sole source of income, and that's true for a lot of seniors throughout this country. So what I'd say to seniors in America, promise made, promise kept. I understand what you're going through with the rising prices, and you need that Social Security check. So we'll make sure to get that done. What can you do to help shore up Social Security? One of the things that's causing problems is the inflation. We have to reduce inflation. When you have higher inflation, the seniors get a cost of living adjustment, which means the program's spending more, but it doesn't cover the increase in the actual inflation rate.
Lift the cap.
You also do need to get to at least 3% growth. You're never going to be able to have issues, be able to solve the budget without that. But I would note this. Congress for decades took money from Social Security. Social Security would have more tax revenue than it put out. They would take it and then they'd write an IOU to Social Security. Congress has a lot of dirty hands on this. I'm going to force Congress to stop spending so much money. And you know, one thing we have to do, we talk about the retirement age, is just something that's changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Life expectancy in the United States is declining.
So, Governor,
in this
yes
country.
or no, would you raise?
Yeah, I said that earlier.
When life expectancy is declining, I don't see how you could raise it the other direction. So it's one thing to peg it on life expectancy, but we have had a significant decline in life expectancy in this country,
So you
and
rule
that's
it
just
out.
the fact.
All right.
Thank you at least for saying that.
And we will be right back after a quick break from Miami, Florida.
Not quite as contentious as it had been. Do you want to, let's check back in with the Dawn over here.
We are going to drill for so much oil. We are going to, as I said before, we are going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to bring down your costs. We are bringing down your energy costs. We have the highest energy costs anywhere now. And you know, energy is...
No, we don't.
...started inflation. And I don't know if you've ever heard, but inflation is called a country buster. You can go back 300 years and you can see why some great empires failed. Many of them failed because of the word inflation. You look at Germany, old day Germany, and you look at so many other countries. Inflation is a country buster, and it's busting our country right now, where bacon is 5 times more expensive than it was just a short while.
This motherfucker doesn't even eat bacon.
Say, I don't want any bacon, it's too expensive. But we're going to get it under control, and we're going to do it fast, because we're going to have so much energy, and the prices are going to come down, and everything else is going to follow. Under crooked Joe Biden, the economy is floundering. Families are suffering, and the largest growth industry in our country by far is government. It's the only thing that's growing. When I'm reelected, we will stop Joe Biden's inflation disaster, and we will rebuild the greatest economy in the history of the world. We'll do it. And unlike Ron DeSanctimonious, I will always protect Social Security and Medicare.
Freedom, good evening.
He wanted to do
Oh, thank you.
for our great senior citizens. And when I get back into the Oval Office,
It's been a rough night. I promise you, I have puppy bus. Everybody gets puppy bus at the end of the show. because this has been a rough one.
Bad people. We will root out the corruption, bribery, and influence.
You do not need to live in Virginia to buy weed there.
By exposing
You have to live in Virginia to buy medical weed.
Joe Biden.
But you can go to any of the dispensaries and get actual weed.
We're allowed to look at him, but he did real bad things. We will restore law and order to our communities. And I will direct a completely overhauled DOJ to investigate.
I don't know, PB Girl. I think if we watched this whole thing, you would have been bored by now.
Illegal, racist, and reverse enforcement of the law. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content.
Robert F. Kennedy is a grifter.
And I will not give 1 penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate.
See, they're still talking about COVID. No, clinically, they're on breaker right now. We got about another 30 minutes.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
There are no mask or vaccine mandates anymore.
No, we're going to make America great again. It's not going to take very long. Not going to take very long. And I will keep.
Well, schools have a vaccine mandate. You gotta have your your MMR vaccines, measles, mumps, rubella, and several other things.
The Second Amendment. I will continue to.
But he's talking specifically about COVID.
We will restore free speech. And I will secure our elections like they've never been secured.
Dude talking about arresting everybody is like, I'm going to restore free speech. I wonder if he's still going to be going when this debate is over.
When NBC News talks to voters, when I talk to voters every day, they all say that the border is the top issue. It can mean a lot of different things. It can mean 2 million.
That's because right-wing media tells them it's an issue.
It can mean more than 150 arrests of people on the terror watch list. It can mean the burden on states from having migrants move into their states from the southwestern border. But I want to talk about opioids specifically and fentanyl. And I'll start with you, Senator.
He looks like a fucking skeleton.
Thousands of Americans' families have suffered a death to fentanyl. Young people sometimes die taking 1 pill. What can you do as Commander-in-Chief on the first day to stop fentanyl and the waterfall of it into this country?
Well, number one, we should close our southern border. For $10 billion, we could close our southern border. For an additional $5 billion, we could use the currently available military technology to surveil our southern border to stop fentanyl from crossing.
Meat cakes. We just want health care.
That is would sanction the Mexican cartels. If you remember the path, the precursors come from China. Then they are manufactured in Mexican labs, and then the Mexican cartels bring them across our border. By sanctioning their accounts and eliminating their cash, we starve them of what they need. Number one, closing our southern border makes it nearly impossible to get in. The military-grade technology is a backup, making sure that we not only stop 70,000 deaths in the last 12 months because of fentanyl,
healthcare
allows us to deal with the human trafficking travesty that is entering in our country in the same path. If we are going to deal effectively with 100,000 overdose deaths in our country and the 70,000 that is directly linked to fentanyl, we have to deal with our ports of entry and deal with our southern border.
No, safe injection sites and healthcare.
The challenge from the outside, and then we have to deal with the challenge.
Legalize drugs.
Which seems to be connected to a mental health crisis that is spreading throughout our nation.
Governor Christie, Senator Scott just mentioned ports of entry. 90% of the fentanyl that is seized in the United States is seized at ports of entry. We don't know what's coming in across the open southern border. You've been a United States attorney. You've taken on cartels. Can it really be done quickly? What would you do as president?
It can be done quickly in 2 ways, Hugh, on fentanyl. The first way is exactly as you suggest at ports of entry. We have to beef up what our law enforcement has in terms of technology. I would invest in that as president. We need to make sure that law enforcement has every tool at its disposal to do it. Secondly, on day one, I would sign an executive order that would send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol, both at ports of entry and at the open ports of our border. Customs and Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed. There's 200,000 encounters a month over the last 11 months. We simply
that's not an open border.
Woman power at the border to be able to deal with it. And so dealing with both law enforcement and you're right, we have done this, we can do this, but we got to give them the tools to do it, and technology is one of the biggest tools that we don't have enough of at the ports of entry. Now, we also need to lower demand, Hugh, in this country. And the way to lower demand is to start treating people again. You know, we started to do this before COVID, and we haven't done enough of it. And for every family out there tonight who has lost a loved one to fentanyl or to any other type of opioid overdose, what you know is all you want is a chance for them to win their lives back. When I'm president of the United States, we're going to call this what it is. It is a disease like heart disease, diabetes, or any other disease like cancer that can be treated, should be treated. We not only have to stop supply, but we have to lower demand and save lives.
Governor.
Well, thank you, Christie.
You have talked about using United States Special Forces to attack the cartels where they manufacture the chemicals that come from China. How often? How many? What does that look like?
Well, first, I was speaking to a dad who lost a son to fentanyl overdose. Son wasn't a drug addict. He had taken some pill that happened to be laced with fentanyl, and it was a fatal overdose. And when he told me...
Why is he just taking some fucking pill?
A child is as bad as it gets. But he said what was salt in the wounds is that these elites in D.C. don't give a damn about what's going on in this country. They don't care that we have tens of thousands of opioid deaths, that the fentanyl's pouring in. They are not taking the type of action that we need to. We're declaring it a national emergency on day one. I'm sending U.S. military to the border. I'm going to stop the invasion cold. I am going to deport people who came illegally. And I'm even going to build the border wall and have Mexico pay for it like Donald Trump promised. How are you going to do it? Yeah, Mexico's not going to fork over money. We're going to impose fees on the remittances that foreign workers send to foreign countries. We'll raise billions of dollars. I'll build the wall. But we are going to designate the cartels to be foreign terrorist organizations or something similar to that. And we're going to authorize the use of deadly force. We're going to have maritime operations to interdict precursor chemicals going into Mexico. But I'll tell you this, if someone in the drug cartels is sneaking fentanyl across the border when I'm president, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to shoot them stone cold dead.
Ron Duterte over here.
Ambassador Haley.
Yeah, once again, went to Yale and Harvard.
The United States uses
talking about the elites.
Mexico without prior notice to the Mexican allies to our south. What would your colleagues at the United Nations think about that?
I don't care what my colleagues at the United Nations think. What I'll tell you is, first of all, you have to go to the source. We have lost more Americans than the Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq wars combined. We lost 75,000 Americans last year. Go to the source. It is the reason why we'll continue to say we will end all normal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans. You watch how quick that flow stops. The second,
you can't end trade relations with China.
The cartels. We need to go to where they're distributing it, where the supply centers are, and take them out. We'll put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We will defund sanctuary cities. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that everybody stays in Mexico and they never get here in the first place. And instead of catch and deport, we'll go to catch and release. Instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That is the way we'll deal with the border. Those are the things that we have to do going forward. But I do agree with Chris. One of the first things that we have to do is really focus on mental health and addiction centers. It is something that is needed in our country terribly because we don't deal with mental health, and someone who doesn't get care for mental health falls into addiction, and we owe
universal health care.
Mr. Ramaswamy, Special Forces in Mexico shoot them stone cold dead at the border?
One thing I just want to say and how we're talking about this issue is, like Ron, I've actually met many parents across this country who have lost their kids to laced pharmaceuticals that have fentanyl in them. The only thing I would ask, Ron, I think you'd be on the same page with me on this. Let's not even call that an overdose.
Right.
That is not an overdose. That is poisoning. If you put that fentanyl in a Big Mac, we would not call that an overdose. You'd call it what it is. It's closer to bioterrorism. And I say that because as it uniquely relates to this crisis, that does warrant more aggressive means to deal with it. So there's a new presidential election in Mexico in 2024. People may not be aware of that. It's going to be someone other than Obrador, who has been a disaster in Mexico.
AMLO has been fantastic.
Speeches to say that somebody who would do this shouldn't get anywhere near the White House. Well, AMLO, get out of the way. There's going to be someone else in charge. I hope to build a good relationship with that next president of Mexico. We'll use our own military to seal.
AMLO is popular too.
What we need to do is stop using our military to protect somebody else's border halfway around the world when we're short right here at home. Get serious about protecting this border. And then the other thing that hasn't been discussed is the northern border. I'm the only candidate on the stage, as far as I'm aware, who has actually visited the northern border. There was enough fentanyl that was captured just on the northern border last year to kill 3 million Americans. So we got to just skate to
Nuke Canada.
Not just where the puck is. Don't
blame Canada.
Walls. Can't just complete the wall, use the military to seal the Swiss cheese for the tunnels that they're actually building underneath that wall.
Hamas is building tunnels from Canada.
Kristen.
Thank you, Hugh. Let's talk now about last night's election results. Abortion rights supporters saw victories in Ohio and Virginia following earlier wins in states like Kansas and Kentucky. Governor DeSantis, first to you.
The cheese goes well with Canadian bacon.
For Republicans on this issue.
This is a movie about the U.S. attacking Canada.
And I understand that it's important that everyone gets a shot. I'm reminded of a story about a young mother who was struggling in Jamaica about 45 years ago. She was counseled to not have a baby because she was poor, baby wouldn't have opportunity, and she came close to have an abortion, but she decided to have the baby.
Never happened.
In Jamaica. And the reason I know that story is because that baby girl ended up emigrating to the state of Florida, becoming a lawyer and a judge, and I appointed her to the Florida Supreme Court in August of 2022. We're better off.
I smell bullshit.
We're better off when we can promote a culture of life. At the same time, I understand that some of these states are doing it a little bit different. Texas is not going to do it the same as New Hampshire. Iowa's not necessarily going to do it the same as Virginia. So you got to work from the bottom up. You got to do a better job on these referenda. I think of all the stuff that's happening.
Ohio legalized weed as well.
Put it on these referenda, and they have been losing the referenda. A lot of the people who are voting for the referenda are Republicans who would vote for a Republican candidate. So you got to understand how to do that. But let's just be clear. The Democrats have taken a position. They will not identify the point at which there should be any protection all the way up until birth. That is wrong, and we cannot stand for that.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in. Former President Trump has consistently blamed
Is Vivek going to interrupt her?
Republican candidates have talked about it for their electoral losses. How do you see the path forward?
You know, I've said it before. I think you have to be honest with the American people. This is a personal issue for every woman and every man. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband Michael was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children. So I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, when you look post-Roe, a wrong was made right. They took it out of the hands of unelected justices and they put it in the hands of the people. And now we're seeing states vote. And what I'll tell you is, as much as I'm pro-life, I don't judge anyone for being pro-choice, and I don't want them to judge me for being pro-life.
No, I judge you.
Looking at this, there are some states that are.
You can be pro-life. You shouldn't impose that on other people.
There's some states that are going more on the pro-choice side. I wish that wasn't the case, but the people decided. But when it comes to the federal law, which is what's being debated here, be honest, it's going to take 60 Senate votes, a majority of the House, and a president to sign it. So no, we haven't had 60 Senate votes in over 100 years. We might have 45 pro-life senators. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president can ban these state laws. So let's find consensus. Let's agree on how we can ban late-term abortions. Let's make sure we encourage adoptions and good quality adoptions. Let's make sure we make contraception accessible. Let's make sure that none of these state laws put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty for getting an abortion. Let's focus on how to save as many babies as we can and support as many moms as we can, and stop.
I'm having pizza after this too, pee-pee girl.
Over this issue anymore.
Thank you, Ambassador. Senator Scott. Senator Scott, I'd like you to weigh in. How do you see the path forward, and what do you make of what Ambassador Haley just said? Do you see this as a consensus issue?
Well, I'm 100% pro-life. I have had 100% pro-life voting record. I would certainly...
Oh, I cooked it earlier. I just got to reheat it.
National limit. I would not allow states like California, Illinois, or New York to have abortion up until the day of birth. I certainly wouldn't not allow for governors, former governor, Democratic governor of Virginia, who talked about infanticide. We need a 15-week federal limit. 3 out of 4 Americans agree with a 15-week limit. 47 out of 50 countries in Europe agree with a 15-week limit. I would challenge both Nikki and Ron to join me at a 15-week limit. It is in our nation's best interest, and frankly, I think it's unethical and immoral to allow for abortions up until the day of birth. We have an opportunity in this nation to stop that reckless behavior from states like California, New York, and Illinois. I'd go a step further. In my parents' plan, we start by talking about funding, block granting resources to crisis pregnancy centers. We should support adoption. There are a number of ways that we can say to the expectant mother that we stand with you. We should not only be pro-life before the child is born, we should be pro-life after the child.
Then do something about the appalling infant mortality rate in this country, especially in southern states.
I would support anything that would pass because that's what would save more babies and support more moms. But you have to be honest with the American people, and I appreciate that Tim keeps calling me out for this. But Tim, there was a bill last year. Lindsey Graham sponsored it. You didn't even co-sponsor the bill. And then when you first were interviewed on this, when you ran, you wouldn't even say you were for 15 weeks. What I'm saying to the American people is, let's see what we can agree on. Let's bring people together and decide what we can agree on. I will sign anything where we can get 60.
Trump currently wrapping up his speech.
American people think that you're going to push something on them when we don't even have the votes in the Senate. It's important that we're honest about that.
Let me go to Mr. Ramaswamy. Would you support a 15?
Sure, everyone wanted to see him dance.
I just wanted to say, I mean, I think Nikki Haley did invoke being honest, and I just want to give credit to Tim Scott. He's honest about where he stood, and I think you should be honest, not making a political calculus, but to say, if a bill is served up, would you sign it? Here's my view on this. Speaking as a man, they say men have trouble speaking on this issue. I don't think we need to be that way. It was my home state of Ohio, I'm upset about this, yesterday, that passed a constitutional amendment that now effectively codifies a right to abortion all the way up to the time of birth without parental consent. Why? It's back to that Republican culture of losing. The Republicans did not have an alternative amendment or vision on the table. I know Ohio. I was born, raised, and I lived there. It's representative of the country. If in the state of Ohio we talked about access to contraception, adoption, and also here's the missing ingredient in this.
He's upset about freedom.
Responsibility for men. We live in an era of reliable genetic paternity tests
You live in
that are
sexual
100%
anarchy?
reliable. So we can say men deserve more responsibility. So we can tell women we're all in this together. It's not men's rights versus women's rights. It's about human rights. And I come back to that case that Clarence Thomas spoke of. A pregnant woman walking down the street. She's assaulted. The unborn child dies in that assault. You find me one person in this country who says that that criminal does not deserve liability for that death. You won't find one. That says we share the same instincts on this issue, but we require, I believe, a different generation of leadership
thank you.
to actually lead.
Buddy, late stage abortions only occur when there's a problem with the child or the mother.
Federal limits are important to a lot of Republicans.
It's barbaric to ban it.
The path forward for Republicans.
For 50 years, conservative lawyers have been arguing that the federal government should have absolutely nothing to do with this issue constitutionally because it's nowhere in the Constitution. And then Dobbs comes and we finally gain that victory, which was the creation of a constitutional right out of thin air that didn't exist. And now we have people running to say, let's short circuit the states from doing what they need to do, and let's go right to some type of federal ban at a certain number of weeks. And people on the stage have been all over the place, 20 weeks, 15 weeks, 12, 6. Look, the Frowners were really smart. And this is an issue that should be decided in each state. And I trust the people of this country state by state to make the call for themselves. Now, that's going to lead to a lot of divergence. In Oklahoma, you can't get an abortion unless the life of the mother is at risk. In my home state, New Jersey, it goes up to 9 months that you get an abortion. I find that morally reprehensible. But that
only when there is something wrong with the child, where the mother's life is in danger.
Right to weigh in on it. But here's the bigger issue, Kirsten. The bigger issue is, and Tim began to touch on this, we're not pro-life for the whole life. To be pro-life for the whole life means that the life of a 16-year-old drug addict on the floor of the county lockup is precious, and we should get treatment for her to restore her life. The 52-year-old who's drug addicted should make sure that any of his children who he's passed that addiction on to are treated well too. Pro-life's not just in the womb, Kirsten, it's for the whole life.
All right, Governor,
I think they know this.
Take a final break, and when we come back, we'll hear from all of you with your closing statement.
I think they know that, and I always point to we've had so many cases already. There was the woman in Florida whose child was born without kidneys, and she had to hold it as it died in agony. Only lived a couple of hours. She held her baby because of the barbaric abortion laws that these assholes are pushing. The woman in Texas whose child was born without a skull and had to hold her child as it died in her arms. That is barbaric. Yeah, it didn't just come out of thin air. First of all, there was a push by a group. There was a chemical that was coming out of the UK that was causing babies to be born with severe defects, and they were living their short lives in agony. And this group pushed for Congress to pass a law. Congress did not act. The Supreme Court stepped in and interpreted the 14th Amendment as protecting a right to an abortion. That's another unfortunate side of it. Like, they have to know this. They have to know this. A woman charged with desecrating a corpse for having a miscarriage. And once again, you should not be able to force a woman to be pregnant when she doesn't want to be pregnant for a whole plethora of reasons. There are men that will purposely get women pregnant in abusive relationships in order to have control over them. That is wrong. If a woman feels that she can't raise a child in the situation she's in, I trust her judgment on that one. And you can't convince me. You can't convince me that it's not better to have not been born than to be born in complete adverse circumstances, in an abusive relationship where the child might be beaten, where the parents are struggling to get by, might not be able to provide for the child. If they decide they don't want to be pregnant and you make a better life for themselves, because women that have abortions end up having the same number of children that they would have had anyway. We have the data on that. Just because a woman has an abortion when they're in their early 20s, maybe their late teens. Both of my nieces had children when they were in their teens, and their mom had them when she was in her teens. And like I tried to talk my niece into getting an abortion. I'm like, do not do this. Do not continue this cycle. That's the exact opposite of what this country needs, is another unwed, uneducated teen mom in Appalachia. Get your life together and then have a child when you're ready. And I do not understand it, because you can't force your morality on other people. You can't legislate morality. Sure, you believe that life is precious. I fucking don't. Clump of cells, call it whatever the fuck you want. We do not treat life as if it's precious in this country. Look at the infant mortality rate. Look at the way we do education. Look at the way we send them to die in war. So fuck all about life being precious.
Well, welcome back, everyone. With only 2 hours for a debate, we know there are other major issues that are important to Republican primary voters. I'll ask you each to please use your closing statement to focus on any topic you didn't have time to address and why you and not former President Trump would be the party's best choice to tackle these important issues. You each have a minute. Senator Scott, we'll start with you. 1 minute.
There's a crisis that is growing in our nation, and that crisis is cultural and spiritual. We need a renewal, a great awakening.
We love you, Freedom.
Reject the left's valueless, faithless, fatherless society. We should turn back to faith, patriotism, and individual responsibility. We should stop choosing victimhood and start choosing victory. We should stop kneeling in protest and start kneeling in prayer. There are basic truths that built this country. If you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I do not just want to...
Audience, please.
I do not just want to win the battle against Joe Biden. I want us together to win the war for our Christian conservative values that changed my life.
Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, you have...
That's why I'm asking you for your vote.
Sounds fashy to me.
Thank you for hosting tonight. Listen, it's a gift to be an American. And I'm running for President of the United States because I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing the division. I'm tired of seeing the anger. And I can see in the eyes of Americans their exhaustion. Their exhaustion from the petty, personal politics that have taken over this country over the
They were exemplified in the last 2 hours.
I'm running for president to be a president of consequence, to do the big things, to make sure that America's role in the world stays number one, that we stand up for our friends and allies around the world, and we stand up for what we believe in right here at home. And it's not to eliminate our differences. Our differences has always been our strength as a country, not our weakness. But you can't truly say you love America unless you're ready to open up your heart.
Well, they did a good job with the concealer on his neck fat. You gotta give him that.
And I will make sure that I return honesty, integrity to the Oval Office. We deserve and should accept nothing less.
Governor, thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Ramaswamy now. Your 1 minute.
We've talked a lot about foreign wars tonight, but we're in the middle of a war right here at home. It's a war not between black and white or Democrat and Republican. It's between those of us who believe in our founding ideals and love this country and a fringe minority who hates the United States of America. And I think it's going to take a commander-in-chief to lead us to victory in that war, who first of all knows that we're in a war. Second of all, can't be captured by the special interests along the way. But third is from the next generation, somebody with fresh legs to lead us to victory. I'll shut down the deep state. I'll declare economic independence from China. I'll keep us out of World War III and then revive national pride in this country. I also want to close with one message to the Democrat Party. End this farce that Joe Biden is going to be your nominee. We know he's not even the president of the United States. He's
what?
Managerial class. So have the guts to step up and be honest about who you're actually going to put up so we can have an honest debate. Biden should step aside, end his candidacy now so we can see whether it's Newsom or Michelle Obama or whoever else.
All right,
just
Mr.
tell us the
Ramaswamy,
truth so we can have an honest debate.
This guy is fucking insane.
Ambassador Haley, you have 1 minute for your closing.
Thank you. The world is on fire. We have a war in Europe.
Yes, let's do something about climate change.
We've got China on the march. It is very important that we know how to defend our freedoms and how to defeat terrorism and socialism. We have to know the difference between good and evil. We have to know the difference between right and wrong. We need to know that a strong America doesn't start wars, a strong America prevents wars. And the way we can focus on that is to make sure we go back to the soul of America and be strong and proud again. And we can't do that. We can't win the fights of the
When have we ever prevented a war?
Politicians from the 20th century. We have to move forward. And we can do this. I know we can do this. So join our movement. Go to NikkiHaley.com, and we will once again show what America that's strong and proud looks like. God bless.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor DeSantis, you're closing. You have 1 minute.
We must reverse our country's decline, and that is going to require leadership. I will take the hits, I will take the arrows, I will take the barbs, because it's not about me, it's about you. It's not about the past, it's about your future. We are going to fight for you. I am going to win for you and your family, and I'm going to lead this country's revival. As a veteran of the Iraq War and in the Navy, I will always put service above self as president. As the father of 3 young kids, I'm going to ensure that this country is left to the next generation in better shape than we found it. And as the governor of Florida, I delivered on all my promises, and you can trust me to deliver for you as the President of the United States. I am asking for your vote. I'll be a nominee that will be able to win the election. I will be a leader you can be proud of, and as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you.
Governor DeSantis, thank you.
Shut up, Lester.
That is going to conclude our debate. The next line says, if the audience can hold their applause. That didn't work out. But anyway, for just a few more seconds, I'll ask you to just hold the applause. On behalf of my fellow moderators, I want to thank the candidates for their time and for this spirited debate. Really good, deep conversation, and we appreciate you all.
Was it?
Thank you as well to our wonderful hosts here at the Adrienne Arsh Performing Arts Center. On behalf of the Republican National Committee and all of us at NBC News, good night, everyone, from Miami.
Well, hold on. Does Vivek and Nikki, do they shake hands? No, Vivek walked right past her. So everybody shook hands except Vivek and Nikki. There is some real beef there. I thought it might have just been because, like, Nikki Haley has been rising in the polls. That some polls even have her as number 2 at this point in time, overtaking Ron DeSantis. DeSantis has been sinking, so I kind of figured the attacks on Haley. Oh! Vivek was walking over there. He might have actually went to shake her hand. I'm sorry, this dude is really ugly over here on the Trump rally.
Very dense Hispanic community. What does the president think about these poll numbers that keep increasing amongst the?
That looks like a very Jewish looking guy. Why are you asking him about Hispanics?
Across the United States, whether it be Latinos, Black Americans, White Americans, Asian Americans, everyone wants to have the economy that we had just 3 short years ago. People want to have a safe and secure southern border. They want to have streets where they can actually walk in without getting mugged or shot. They don't want war in Ukraine, but that's what Joe Biden has done to our country.
When President Trump walked off stage tonight, did he say anything to you or the team?
They just gave us a fist bump and said, let's do it again tomorrow.
Did you watch any of the debate?
Yeah, watch the entire
What'd you
debate.
think?
Look, I think while President Trump was here in Hialeah, having streets named after him.
Why is his mouth so small?
In Miami getting paved over.
I'd like to get some implants.
You use that line.
I'm not gonna make fun of anybody's hair.
I'm on message and focus. Sorry, the glasses.
One of the things that we just heard was that he doesn't have any plans to attend the next debate. I mean, do you want to elaborate on that or just comment?
President Trump? Oh, yeah, President Trump won't be participating in the primary debates. He's ahead by 50 points. Why would he go and participate? He's very much looking forward to debating Joe Biden in the general election. I'm not even sure Joe Biden's going to show up.
We only got one of those last time.
Election next year, quite frankly. I think there's American public, as we've seen with the New York Times polling, all of the polling shows that people are just absolutely sick and tired of Joe Biden. Not only does he demonstrate weakness, but the feebleness that he's shown, the disastrous economy, southern border, everything's been a disaster.
You guys will think back to 2020. We got the one debate. The second debate, Trump got COVID. And then we had like dueling town halls because Biden wouldn't want to be on stage with Trump. I'm sad I hadn't started doing the Troll Patrol regularly during the primary in 2020. Missed out on all those primary debates with the Democrats. I watched them. Also, I came up with an idea for a T-shirt that might cause some people to really, really hate me. I think I'm gonna make it though, because like I could see like the right wing going nuts over my balls selling this T-shirt. I might unveil that for you guys tomorrow. I just remembered it. I came up with it last night. Whew, what a night it's been. I told you guys. Because it's one of these nights, we've all had a rough night. We listened to Trump, we listened to the idiots in the GOP debate. So there's only one thing we can end with.
Thank you for riding with my mountain mutts. Jake is jumping out of his seat. Would you guys like a complimentary chicken liver with your bus ride? We got Belden, whiskey, excuse me, miss. We're gonna do
Amaru,
Bert, back up, girl. You're just being a little treat hog, aren't you?
This is Mo Mountain Mutts.
You're gonna have to sit in your seat. Sit. Quit squishing your seatmate. A good tolerant little Salem over here.
Oh, hi Salem.
Gentle. Jake.
Is Gentle his name?
Tater.
Tater.
Mina. Layla. Echo. Louie. Carl, stop that.
Damn it, Carl.
Treat snatchers today.
A white boy Carl.
Stay in your seats till we get to your house. Tails out of the aisle. Mina, you're sitting in the emergency exit. Are you willing and capable of offloading the pups in a remote chance of an emergency? Not today, apparently. Thank you for riding with my mountain mutts. Jake is jumping out of his seat. Would you guys like a complimentary chicken?
She's got a kid on her back. That's what I was wondering, if Gentle was a command, or if it was because she didn't say the name of the puppy.
Excuse me, miss.
We know a couple from previous videos. That's Amaru. We've met Amaru several times.
Back up, girl. You're just being a little treat hog, aren't you?
Oh, it's Earl? I thought she was saying girl.
Sit. Quit squishing your.
Earl is gorgeous.
What a good tolerant little Salem over here.
Oh,
Girl, wait.
Salem.
Gentle. Jake.
It's Mo Mountain Mutts on TikTok.
Mina.
I think they're on other social media, but they're blowing up on TikTok.
Echo. Louie. Carl, stop that. Getting some treat snatchers today. Please stay in your seats.
I know all about treat snatchers.
Tails out of the aisle. Mina.
I have to separate socks from the other
Willing
cats.
and capable of offloading the pups in a remote chance of an emergency. Not today, apparently.
Is this like a doggy daycare for really bougie people? I want to say it's in like Washington or something like that.
Jumping out of his seat. Would you guys like a complimentary chicken liver with your bus ride? We got Belden, whiskey.
Oh, they're actually in Skagway, Alaska.
Amaru, Bert.
Skagway, Alaska.
Back up, girl.
Yeah, they're on all the social media.
Ma'am, you're gonna have to sit in your seat. Sit. Quit squishing your seatmate. What a good tolerant little.
I'm sorry, guys. I have to do it. I'm going to take tomorrow night off again.
Gentle.
No freak show on Friday. I've got some shit I need to do.
Mina.
Well, I love you guys. I love doing this show. I really want to get into the position where I can do this. I'm doing this full time already,
Some treat snackers.
but working my full-time job on top of this.
Seeds till we get to your house.
I would like to not do 2 full-time jobs.
Mina, you're sitting in the emergency exit. Are you willing and capable of offloading the pups and a remote chance of
Yeah, I'm going to be off tomorrow on Thursday. No freak show on Friday. We'll be on Sunday. We'll be back. We'll cover all the news. Get you caught up on some of the election shit that we missed out on last night.
Jake is jumping out of his seat.
Oh, I'm glad you guys had
You
fun.
guys like a complimentary chicken liver with your bus ride?
Hopefully, guys, I get the opportunity to
Whiskey?
appeal my Twitch again in 5 days. It is possible.
We're gonna do
It is possible that I will get my Twitch back next week. And that was where I was growing. That was where I was making money. I was up to like between $250, $300 a month on Twitch. And to
Salem over.
go from, making a few $100s a month on the streaming made it a lot easier to be able to do this, to going to making $5 if I'm lucky on YouTube. YouTube is brutal.
Layla.
I have a blast doing this with you guys. I love doing the show. This is the show I've always wanted to do. I've been in broadcasting since I was 16. I'll still stay on Kick.
Tails out of the aisle. Mina.
If I get the Twitch back, we're gonna stay on Kick. We're gonna go back to being on D Live and Facebook and all that shit.
Would you guys like a complimentary?
Oh, you're asking if I'm not even big enough yet on Kick to be monetized. I think you have to have 100 subscribers.
Whiskey.
Yeah, PP girl, believe me, I know. And when I got fired from the radio station in 2012, everybody told me to do a podcast.
Back up.
Boy, was I stupid. I've gone over this before. I thought I was above internet, streaming, radio, whatever. Boy, was I fucking dumb.
What a good tolerant little Salem over here.
Because if I got in on YouTube at that time, it would have been a hell of a lot easier to grow.
Jake. Tater.
And I don't care. I don't want to be loaded. I don't give a shit about money. I just want to be able to pay my bills.
Echo. Louie.
As long as I can buy my pot, I can, buy a good steak.
Stay in your seats till we get to your house.
I can buy treats for the kiddies. I don't care.
Mina, you're sitting in the emergency exit. Are you willing?
So this isn't about me, wanting to become, I don't want millions of subscribers and blah blah. I would feel pressure. I'd feel a lot of pressure if I had millions of subscribers.
Thank you for riding with my mountain mutts, Jake.
It'd be cool if it happened. I'm not opposed to it.
Would you guys like a compliment?
But ideally, I want to get to, if I have 100,000 subscribers, if I can make $5 or $10 off of all the clips I post, I would be so happy with that. That's all I want.
Excuse me, miss. We're gonna do a month.
If I can get 1,000 people to do $1 on Patreon, that's all I want.
Back up. Girl, you're just being a little treat hog, aren't you?
I love the small community feel. That is one of the things that I would regret if we grow a little bit bigger. Yeah, I would have to not pay attention to the chat, and I love talking to you guys. And honestly, if we get just a little bit bigger than what I am right now, I'm going to lose that ability. Because sometimes the chat is going too fast for me to read it at this time.
Echo.
I don't want to be, I don't want to
Getting some treat snacks.
get on here and, try to sell you VPNs and all that good shit. I'm going to monetize it myself.
Mina,
Kind of like the Majority Report does.
willing and capable.
Their sponsors are shit they believed in.
Not today, apparently.
and shit that you guys would actually like. So that's what I would do. I would sell advertising to my friends who have bands that have a CD coming out.
Like a complimentary.
That sort of thing. If I can snag a sponsorship with a head shop or something, I would do that.
Whiskey.
That's that's what I would pattern myself after.
We're gonna do
They don't depend on YouTube.
Bert.
Because you can't depend on YouTube. You can't depend on Twitch. I mean, I found that out earlier in the year. Twitch is gone in a heartbeat.
You're a little treat hog, aren't you?
But also, the thing I miss about Twitch is you guys doing, beanie time or, no cussing for 10 minutes. And telling me to take a shot or take a hit.
Jake?
I don't know. I don't usually watch the Majority Report live. Like, I watch it after the show as I'm eating dinner and stuff. So I skip all the ads.
Louie?
Sometimes I hear them.
Getting some treat snatchers today.
Well, also, that's a...
Stay in your seats till we get to...
I don't watch other people that do the thing I do, except, I don't watch other commentators except really the Majority Report.
Are you willing and capable?
And I've been with Sam since Air America. Back when it was Sam and Janine on Air America Radio. Yeah, I miss all the fun channel points things. That's one of the things I want with I want the Twitch back.
Thank you for riding with my mountain mutts. Jake is jumping out of his seat.
But yeah, I don't watch other commentators because I don't want their opinions to seep into mine.
We got Belden.
I'm amazed that Kick is like a fucking carbon copy of Twitch. I'm amazed they don't have channel points like that.
Excuse me, miss. We're gonna do Amaru. Bert.
Oh, thank you, DJ Dub. But don't there's 3 tiers: $1, $2, or $1, $3, $5. I just want everybody if you enjoy what I do, give me $1 a month. If I can get to 1,000 people, give me $1 a month on Patreon. If I can make $5 to $10 on each YouTube clip I post, that's all I want.
Jake. Tater.
If I go any bigger than that, cool. So be it.
Echo.
Sky Comet, you do not have to do that, and I have been doing a really bad job of putting content on Patreon. I need to get back to that.
Mina.
I used to be putting my notes on Patreon every day.
Capable of offloading the pups in a remote chance of an emergency.
Because I think my notes for the show each night, that's kind of valuable for you to be able to go back and check all those news stories. It's a good roundup of the news for the day. So I was putting that on the $1 tier of Patreon, and then if you did the $3 tier, you got the Saturday freaking news, and then if you did the $5 tier, you got Saturday and Sunday freaking news. But I haven't even been doing regular freaking newses here lately because I'm so fucking busy. I gotta get. I'm a voiceover for an anime channel. I have to edit my voiceover after I get off here, and I really should edit some other videos, but I kind of doubt that'll happen. I see that feels weird. Don't I wouldn't want you to give me 30 minutes of your time. That's weird. I don't want it, and you guys have noticed, I don't ever do the, plug in my channel, plug in my Patreon. It's very fucking rare. I've got the drops that pop up on screen. Other than that, I feel weird doing it. I don't want to beg people for money. I just, Also, it's amazing how much money I can make when I actually do my other work. I'm pretty talented as a video editor. I'm just lazy. Fair enough. I mean, if you're watching every night and you want to give me $5 on Patreon, I greatly appreciate it. I also I've been thinking about this for years. I want to have a closing credits on the show. Maybe it goes over the animal video that we're playing that, gives a shout out to people that support on Patreon. And I know fucking Warlord has been on my Patreon as a supporter for fucking years now. I love you, Warlord. I don't come in here and give me a hard time, but you've been one of my biggest supporters, and that's why you're the main mod. I even think when new people come in, sometimes they don't know how to take Warlord. I went into Xander Hole's chat the other day and started raising hell again. Oh, Destiny! I'm trying to pick a fight with Destiny. I guess that's my next goal, is try to pick a fight with Destiny. But I'm currently timed out on his Kick channel. Oh fuck. I try to give you at least 10 hours a week. Sometimes it's more. Last night we went 3. Tonight it was 3. Back when we were still on Twitch, I was doing fucking 4 or 5 hour streams. I love you guys so much. Thank you for all your support. I absolutely believe so. I think I can peel off some fans from Destiny. I think there are people that are hate watching Destiny that I can pull. I try to do a good product for you guys. Not to bitch about other people's stream, but I feel like a lot of streamers aren't really putting in effort into their content. I'm not gonna name names, but I wouldn't watch somebody play video games and then watch somebody else's YouTube video over it. That's weird to me. I don't understand how that's a product people would be into. I try to give you something of value. Find out what that news be doing. I want to inform you. But anyway, I love you guys so much. I will see you on Sunday night. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm JustinFREAKIN. See you on Sunday.